So, ladies and gentlemen, a good morning to all of you, and very much welcome to this Step 2030 webinar organized by EURATEX. As you can see on the on the screen, there are many people joining us still now, but we do have a fairly ambitious agenda. So I would like to start our session this morning. And I hope you can nicely hear me and see the slides that we will be using in the course of this morning. First of all, I would like to present myself, Dirk Vantyghem. I'm the Director General of EURATEX, based here in Brussels, and I'm sitting here in the room with Catherine and Christina, two of my colleagues, and together we will try to manage this this session this morning. I just want to make a few introductory remarks to give you a bit of background why we are having this webinar this morning, to explain you the motivation, the interest of EURATEX to move forward with this event. It's all about focusing on research and innovation in the textile ecosystem. I think many of you working in textiles know that our sector is going through very important challenges and changes. There is important competitive pressures. We are convinced at EURATEX that we need to invest more into research and innovation to become more sustainable on the one hand, and at the same time remain competitive. And that is why it's so important to collectively discuss, reflect, where do we stand in the area of research and innovation in the textile ecosystem. So what is happening today, and what do we need to do towards the future? This is not just EURATEX saying that, but this is also recognized by the European Commission in their EU textile strategy, which was adopted over a year ago. And I would like to just quote that textile strategy. Sorry, I would like to quote that strategy because it's very important. It really summarizes the essence of our efforts. The strategy says, making the green and digital transition a story of success and resilience in the context of global value chains relies on the capacity of the textile ecosystem to reinvent itself. Enhancing research and innovation and promoting investments in the sector are essential to tap into this potential, to create sustainable growth and local jobs, and should be a priority at EU, national and regional level. In other words, also the European Commission in its strategy, in its vision for the future of our sector, is recognizing the critical importance to invest in research and innovation. Then the next question, of course, is how do we do that? How do we put into practice what is presented into this in this textile strategy? And the EURATEX answer has been to develop the Step 2030 proposal, which is a proposal to streamline, to identify and streamline what are the priority needs when it comes to research and innovation in the textile ecosystem, and to try and obtain the necessary financial support from the European Union to implement those different activities across the different chapters that we have identified. Concretely, EURATEX has put forward this Step 2030 proposal several months ago to the European Commission to obtain support under the Horizon European partnerships. And as you may see on the screen, it's a little bit small, probably, but this textile proposal has been retained as of now as a potential candidate for such a European partnership. So if you want, we are on the shortlist, and in the next few months, a final decision will be taken by the European Commission and member states to decide whether or not, and possibly how much support would be given to this Step 2030 proposal. So how much support would go into the textile ecosystem to invest in research and innovation. And obviously that is the background of our event this morning, to again listen to what is happening within the industry today when it comes to research and innovation. More important, to discuss what are the needs into the future and how this Step 2030 proposal can actually accommodate those needs when it comes to financial support, when it comes to bringing the different players and stakeholders together. So that is the background of our event. And more specifically, let me share with you the agenda that we have this morning. As I said, it is quite an ambitious agenda. Basically, we will take you through 4 panel discussions looking at the different segments, different aspects of the Step 2030 proposal. And for each of those panels, we have identified a number of speakers, representatives from the industry, from the research community, to share, again, their current practice, their current technology, which they have developed, and share their perspective, as I said before, on what they think are the needs, the bottlenecks towards further developing their research and innovation towards remaining or becoming a more competitive textile company. You can see the 4 sessions that we have foreseen. Panel number 1 will be about durable, circular and bio-based materials. The second panel will focus more on the supply chains and the low footprint products. We will then have a short break. Then panel 3 will focus more on digitalization. And then the last panel will focus on smart high performance materials. And again, the setting is the same for each of those panels. We will have a moderator briefly introducing the topic, and then inviting up to 3 speakers who will briefly present their story and express their expectations going into the future. So that will be the same, let's say, template that we will manage throughout this morning. So after those 4 teams, after those 4 blocks, if you want, of speakers, we will have a kind of a wrapping up, summarizing, done by Lutz Walter, Secretary General of ETP, European Technology Platform, who of course is very much involved in this entire exercise, in setting priorities, thinking about the future needs, etc. So Lutz will try to, summarize what has been discussed in those panels and add his perspective. And then we will conclude with a contribution from the European Commission, specifically from Marie-Hélène Pradine, the head of unit in DG Grow, responsible for the textile industry. And she will give the Commission's perspective towards this Step 2030 proposal, how they see the involvement of the textile ecosystem into this Horizon Europe partnership program. Now, at the end of that, we will wrap it up with a few concluding words. So that is the, as I said, fairly ambitious agenda. From a practical perspective, all participants, you will be able, of course, to contribute with questions, with comments, but we kindly ask you to use primarily the chat function in that, because we do have a lot of participants. We are at 250 people right now that joined us. So if I can ask you, whenever you follow the presentations and you want to make a comment, ask a question, primarily go to the chat, and then together with the moderator, we will look at those different questions, try to respond from the speakers, from the moderator, and then if necessary, here and there, we can allow you to come in, to unmute yourself, so that you can also participate in the discussion. But primarily, again, given the large number of participants that we have, we kindly ask you to share your thoughts, your comments, your questions, first of all, through the chat function. That is the again, the agenda for this morning. It's a long session. I hope you'll be with us for the whole period, and looking forward to an interesting discussion. Before we then, get cracking, as we say, we cannot do a tour de table, as we say here in Brussels. We cannot make a round of introduction, but we have organized a little quick Slido just to allow us to introduce ourselves. So I think all of you are familiar with Slido. So if I can ask you to grab your mobile phone, do the QR code, or go to slido.com, putting this number, and answer that first question: where are you coming from? So I can see Luxembourg being very quick. Thank you. So let's just have a look together. Where are you based? Germany coming up, Belgium, France, Netherlands, Helsinki, Hamburg, Austria. Germany still in the lead. Netherlands coming up. Sweden, of course, says somebody. That's interesting. We have colleagues from Japan, Serbia, India. Let's give it a few more seconds to see. 100 people have already responded. Feel free still to come in. Yeah, some people are using the chat, but please use the Slido, the QR. We have Kenya. Welcome, Kenya. Ukraine also. Nice to have the colleagues from Ukraine with us. Bulgaria, Turkey, of course. Okay, let's a few more seconds. Anyone else wants to? Italy coming up. Okay. Good. Thank you for that. Let's move to just the next question. Who are you? Just to give an idea, to have an idea about your background. Are you working for an association? Are you a company? Research, a brand? Let's have a look who we have around the table. I can see many companies, textile companies. That is great. For EURATEX, obviously, we are there, as all of you know, to represent the textile industry here in Europe. Associations, a couple of brands also there, which is also very important to have a closer link between the textile producing companies and the fashion brands. Okay. Public authorities also. So that is, of course, equally important to have not just, let's say, the private sector and the stakeholders on the textile ecosystem with us, but also the authorities, whether it's representatives from the Commission, but also, I think, many national, regional authorities are with us this morning. Okay, very good to see. Okay, and then a last question, which is a bit of a popularity poll, just asking you to rank in terms of importance for you. Where are the bigger innovation needs across those different areas? Sustainability, digitalization, traceability, high performance materials. And of course, as EURATEX, we would insist that all of them are important. That is also what we have included in our Step 2030 proposal. But again, it's always, nice to have a bit of a competition to see what are the bigger interests or priorities. And I can see circularity and the circular business model and the supply chains. Number one, the bio-based resources. Number two, traceability, digitalization, and then the high performance materials. And of course, we know that many areas of research and innovation are maybe difficult to allocate in one or the other of those 5 topics. So we can have a long discussion, you know, what comes under which heading. But again, this is just to give ourselves a flavor of, you know, where are the interests. I think it's good to see that from at least from our perspective, that all 5 of those areas are, or anyhow, considered important. Because once again, in our Step 2030 manifesto that I think many of you have seen, have read, we are touching upon each of those areas. So it's not, we don't want to make it into a real competition, but it's good to see this broad interest. Okay, I think that is it in terms of introduction. Thank you, Catherine. If I take control again. Do I go back now? Presentation. Okay. Okay, with all this, I think we are ready to go. And I would immediately like to pass the floor to our first moderator, Lisa Schwarz-Bour from RISE in Sweden. Lisa, to introduce the first panel and then your speakers. And as we said, you have 40 minutes. Off you go, please.
Thank you so much, Dirk. And welcome to this first panel on the topic durable, circular and bio-based materials and processes. My name is Lisa Bour. I represent RISE, Research Institutes of Sweden, where I work as director for the unit, the Environment and Sustainable Chemistry. And here we have a clear focus on textile from several perspectives, ranging from legislation to sustainability assessments. And to briefly introduce the first topic of today, one of the textile sector's important challenges is to make the transition from fossil-based to renewable carbon sources. And of course, this requires research and innovation in several fields. We need new processing technologies, smarter purchasing decisions, and of course, stakeholder collaborations. And bio-based solutions are needed not only for our raw material and secondary raw material sources, but also for textile functionality, such as DWR treatments and UV shielding. And end-of-life handling is highly relevant also for bio-based materials, and the various R strategies are as valid here as for conventional materials. And our first panel is here today to discuss this topic, and our speakers are Marina Crnoja-Cosic, who works as director at Kelheim Fibres. We have Anna Tavares, CEO of RDD Textiles, and Acerina Trejo Machin from Resortecs, where she is the CTO. And with that, I open the floor to our first speaker, Marina from Kelheim Fibres.
So, thank you very much, Lisa, for the introduction. So I would like to start by introducing myself, just briefly. Marina Crnoja-Cosic. Lisa, perfect pronunciation. Really, I'm impressed about that. It's not very easy. As I'm Director New Business Development Marketing and member of the Management Board at Kelheim Fibres. But I have also several additional roles, and I'm very pleased and proud to be the president of VTP for the next 2 years, and also board member of CIRS and board observer at EURATEX. Exactly half board member of German Research Council of Textile as well. But summarized, my whole career path is dealing with innovation in terms of fiber development, textiles and nonwovens development, and implementing those applications on the market. So now I would like to use a little bit time to introduce Kelheim Fibres. Kelheim Fibres, we are based in Germany, in Bavaria, and we are existing since 85 years. We are one of the last viscose staple fiber producer in Europe. Exactly, there are two of us in Europe right now. But that's also a great thing to have to be 85 years old, because we have a long time experience knowledge. We have, based on that, or high innovation capacity. In regard of the technical setup, we have our pilot plants, which allow us to make really innovation in terms of fiber developments, but also in terms of prototypes for textiles, yarns, but also beyond that, other special applications as well. We are producing currently approximately 80,000 tons fibers per year. That means in the global context, we are a small producer, but that's also the very nice thing in regard of the flexibility. Our key feature is flexibility in terms of doing the customized solutions based on our fiber technologies. And now I would like to come to the few very important fibers we can produce. You could just skip to the first slide, just to introduce. As we are a specialty fiber producer, we have possibility to change the fibers in terms of changing of cross section of the fibers, to add some additives on the fibers, which are all important things in regard of the products made out of that in terms of durability. We are 100% bio-based and biodegradable, as we are man-made cellulosic fibers, and our main application areas are in specialty business in regard of the hygiene, specialty textiles, specialty papers, and our big feature is to work the cross industries and to offer the viscose fibers, to bring those fibers as a solutions for many of the products out of that. Now you can go to the next slide. We are facing right now, as we all know, some kind of the bioeconomy revolution in general, but particularly in textile. We are playing actually between three parts there. We are offering the bio-based fiber solutions, which are consistent with performance, try to have circularity as an added value to that, and all of that to remain as a competitive fiber producer. You see here the four columns, which is our innovation approach. Of course, the new products, new fibers, new applications, with focus on sustainability, of course. Then we have sustainable processes in terms of circularity and transparency, as is actually the driving force for current, but more for future production of Kelheim fiber specialties. And I would like to express here valuable cooperations. That's the topic we are going to talk deeply about that today, but it's a crucial and important thing for us, for Kelheim Fibres, know-how and network in research and institutes and universities. You see here just highlighted a few media announcements which are connected to those cooperations, because that allow us actually to enhance the speed in terms of development to the commercialization by making the prototypes, but also very important for mid and long-term development. That's what we are doing, but the most important thing today is to tell us what we actually need to continue the successful transformation in economic and environmental terms, and remaining the 100% European specialty fiber producer. I put it in 3 points here. We can discuss it later deeply about that. But the important thing is, of course, the policy framework. To balance this competitiveness, sustainability, innovation, we need clear we need clear regulation and rules. And of course, very, very important thing is harmonized innovation and research landscape by creating a dedicated innovation framework. Therefore, are the initiatives like Step 2030 very, very important and crucial for us in terms of short innovations, but even more in terms of mid and long-term innovations, in terms of implementing all of those ideas in regard of the circularity, sustainability, and of course, to remain competitive in this landscape.
Thank you so much, Marina. Perfect timing. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. And with that, present our second speaker, Anna Tavares from RDD Textiles. Welcome, Anna.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. So first, excuse me because I'm in the airport. So if you hear external weird sounds, it's not me. It's the people around. This was the calmest place I could find. So just to introduce, before introducing RDD, so RDD belongs to a group in Portugal named Valérios. Valérios Hub is the platform that we created to put together all the companies that work closely to us, and we have so any kind of segment of the textile industry inside of our facilities, meaning that Valérios started as a garment maker, and since this administration has started there, so in 2007, it has been created along the supply chain, let's say, coming for fabrics, for printing, for design in 3D, knitting, also dyeing and finishing, and most recently our Valérios 360 unit, which is a recycling center, a unique recycling center in Portugal. Inside of this ecosystem, RDD was born in 2017 in order to scale up innovations that we were working before. And for that, we hired specialized people and to work in these kind of topics, and also to create a strong bridge between our companies and also academia and technological centers and other partners that come to us or that we find through our own research and development. So if you could go to the second slide, please. As you see over there, what we do with the RDD as a business model, let's say, is we identify a problem, or our customers and partners identify a problem. We try to contact innovators that somehow has developed this kind of technologies, but still in a very early stage. We do together with them the tech exploration, and we try to have the proof of concept and scale it up to production. I just wrote there three of the most important innovations for us at the moment, which are so the first one, Valérios 360, as I said, it was a 25 million factory investment done in 2017, where we concentrate the mechanical recycling of textiles to textiles, but also textiles to paper, where we produce 100% cotton paper, so meaning paper that comes 100% from cotton waste. We collect leftovers from garment makers, and then we develop our own yarns, blends, and at RDD we use these kind of yarns to develop new fabrics, and also to study possibilities of incorporation in blends with other producers of different fibers, alternative fibers to virgin or to conventional materials. Another innovation that we have installed, but at this time in our dyeing house, was the Color Fix, Colorifix is a technology that allows us to grow bacteria that are programmed to produce a pigment, and then we dye with this pigment instead of dyeing with chemical, the normal chemical dye stuffs. And then the technology of Resichrome, which is a partnership with an Italian company, where we send leftovers that we have in our garment makers for them to transform into powder, and for us to dye afterwards with this powder once again, instead of using chemical dye stuffs. So all of these innovations and much more that we are working on required first big investments in terms of equipment, but also in people. We are a textile company without any textile engineer. So we work with people from biotechnology, from biochemistry, chemical engineers, and so on. But at RDD, and then of course we make the bridge with the other with our factories that have textile people. But these people at this point is very important, and also the bridge that we have been creating with these innovators. Most of them coming from academia. For example, Colorifix is coming from Cambridge. Also, Resichrome has a strong connection with universities in Italy, and this collaboration is what allows us to continue, let's say, the path that we have been created during the last few years. At this point, when customers or partners come to us, they come because they know that they could find a place where they could scale up these innovations. Of course, this is something that for us is very important to keep. Some of these projects were, of course, funded by national or international funds, and these programs under Horizon 2030 or Europe 2030 are very important for us, and to keep our activities, and actually to make this transition possible. Because at this point we find that sometimes we are losing some businesses for other countries, and we could invest more if we have this strong collaboration and partnership with other European companies to still keep European alive as a textile producer.
40 seconds left, Anna. Maybe you were finalized already there.
Sorry?
Oh, I just said that it was 30 seconds left.
Ah, okay. Okay, I was faster. Yeah, but that's it.
Thank you so much, Anna, for being able to present, although you are at the airport. That's not the easiest thing to do. I would just like to encourage the audience to please don't hesitate to share your questions to the speakers in the chat. And with that, I would like to present our third speaker. Welcome, Acerina.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. So it's a pleasure to be here presenting Resortecs technology. So I'm Acerina, the CTO, and at Resortecs, we have developed a technology to enable automatic disassembly of textile products, making recycling easy. So our solution is the combination of two technologies to design for disassembly innovation, smart stitch and smart disassembly. Can you move to next? Yeah, good. So smart stitch are heat-dissolvable stitching thread that they melt between 150 to 200 degrees, and what happens is that allows the seams to disappear automatically when heat is applied. So basically, brands produce clothes with a smart stitch, and they don't need to change anything in the factory. Basically, they can just plug and play a smart stitch, but this allows them to produce clothes that are designed for disassembly and therefore easier to recycle. So at the end of life, when it's time for recycling, smart disassembly enters in place. These are thermal systems that enables to disassemble garments 5 times faster. So basically, recyclers or sorters at the end of life will use this machinery to take apart garments and ensure the recycling. The process happened much faster than manual disassembly and without damaging the fabric in comparison to mechanical disassembly. So the combination of a smart stitch and a smart disassembly has a huge impact. We can ensure 90% of recyclability rates, and based on the LCA that we performed that was externally reviewed, the combination of Resortecs and recycling technologies can reduce CO2 emission by 50%. So this small change has a huge impact. And finally, all the different components that needs to be removed, for example, zippers, buttons, I will show you an example just after. All of this can be then reused or recycled depending on the case. So I'm going to use the opportunity to show you a really short video. Next slide. Really short video about our technology, how does it work. In this case, it was a collaboration with Decathlon, and here you. So as you see here, this ski jacket was produced with Smart Stitch and only was used in the parts that needs to be disassembled before recycling. So at the end of this process, you get 100% polyester that can go directly to recycling. So, but of course, even though we have products already commercialized, there is a long way to go. The challenge that we are trying to solve in the textile industry in Europe is huge. So when we think about textile, the first thing that comes to our mind is clothes, but textiles are everywhere. They are in shoes, accessories, cars, interiors, mattresses. To be able to solve this huge challenge, there is still a lot of development to do. So from our side, we still need support in this development to be able to produce smart stitch and other assembly techniques that can enable that all the garments in the market can be recyclable, and that's the final goal. Also, what is really important to create this truly circular industry in the textile in Europe, we also need to collaborate. So also the support to create this small proof of concept, this industry are around in Europe, collaborating between sorters, traceability, also collectors. All of these we need to work together to enable truly circular economy in Europe to still remain competitive. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Acerina. And then welcoming our speakers back to introduce a few questions from the audience. And I think that some of them have been answered already, but just in case something was unclear, perhaps we can start with a question that is on evaluation of digital dyeing. How do you evaluate digital dyeing? Coloring the fabric face side by applying solid color with digital printing machines on cotton. And I think that's perhaps then you have an answer to that, Anna, I'm thinking.
Sorry, I'm not sure if the question was for me or if I did not explain well, but anyway, if the question was directly to colorific technology, is not a digital technology, it's a dyeing process done in a jet dye machine as the conventional one. just using different pigments and a very short time of dyeing, 1 hour instead of the 8 hours of conventional dyeing. I'm not sure if this question came.
It hasn't been addressed to a specific speaker, but if anyone else has input, then of course you're welcome from Marina and as well. But there is one question that I think has been answered as well, but we'll pose it anyway. And this is then for you, Acerina. What is the composition of the threads?
Thanks a lot for the question. So we have different type of threads, as I mentioned, from 150 to 200 degrees, each of them really to be able to use it in different applications. So the higher melting points we are using polyamide base. For the lower melting points, we are using polyester base. And for the one in the middle, we are using polyolefins for the moment. In the case of the higher melting points, also we are using bio-based polymer. So I forgot to mention during the presentation, in case someone has more questions about it, in addition to the technical part and also the environmental analysis that we did, we also did an economical report. I'm just going to put the link in the chat just in case anyone has any question.
There is a follow-up question on that. It's in regard to disassembly of the thread. Will it affect the ocean by having release of microfiber?
That's a concern that we are having now, right, regarding the microfiber, how to work on it. The thing is that we always say that we are more concerned about the fabric level because the amount of thread that we put within the garment is less than 2%. Of course, we are also analyzing what is the impact of the thread that we are putting in, but we always try to see it at the garment level, what is the impact that the full garment will have.
Thank you. Does sorting partners require specific infrastructure to guarantee the correct melting of smart yarn?
That's a really, really, really good question, and indeed, and that's why I mentioned that it's key to find this collaboration with sorters and recyclers, because indeed what is needed is to put in place this smart disassembly. In the video you saw already, we could say small scale smart disassembly that is placed in Brussels right now, and now we are working on a continuous line that will be placed at sorters or recyclers location, and in this case, of course, it requires to use this our machinery to be able to disassemble textile products.
Thank you. And a question addressed to all speakers. You have all mentioned the importance of funding and to be able to collaborate with other stakeholders, both in academia and institutes and also other industry partners. But what do you see are the biggest obstacles in using public funding tools? Perhaps Marina, yes?
Yeah, probably I can start from the view of the traditional viscose fiber producer. Of course, for us, this is important for many, many years, and even more important now are all of those funding initiatives, because it's also the way we can finance our innovation. Which is a really important thing. If you can imagine, we are in a very competitive landscape in regard of implementation, all of those innovations in the market, and therefore it's very important to have financial support from finding projects. That's a very important thing. But what is also important in all of those landscape of funding is actually the speed. I think that is something which can be done better in regard of administration, for example. That is something we are facing this problem actually because, as we all know, there are a big challenge in regard of the administration. You need a dedicated people to do that, and that is also something we can very good link to network provided for that. That's the positive. and also very important. And I think it's also very important to have some kind of balance between different projects in regard of timeline, in regard of mid and long-term projects. This is something we are really looking forward to do more in this direction. And for us, or for me personally, because as a long career in textile and in innovation, it is for me important to have commitment of the whole supply chain. That means if you start the projects and have the funding, it is important to catch up the whole supply chain. Therefore, it's a very, very important to have a harmonized innovation tools, in this case, like this initiative Step2030, just to be sure you are going to involve the whole supply chain and you have commitment from everybody in every step. That's the one crucial point to make the project successful, because we want to have innovation, but we want also to stay with this innovation in Europe in regard of the implementation. Therefore, it's important to have commitment at least from the retail and brands as well in whole of those landscape.
Thank you, Marina. Also to check with Anna and Acerina, if you have any comments from your side, as we have here represented different sizes of companies as well, so it's good to get your perspectives.
Yeah. So as I said before, our work as a company is done always in partnership. Sometimes private funded projects, sometimes public funding projects. But of course, these kind of funds are very important for companies to keep ongoing the innovation, because first the pace of the innovation is different from the pace of the production. So production people are not always the same that the people working on innovation, and it's very important that you have like two different types of works inside of your company, because all of these things happen at a different pace. And for that, you need to invest. You need to have people in your company that, if you think and if you are realistic, do not produce money, let's say, because they are not selling, they are just investigating, they are trying to solve problems that will be there in the future, but meanwhile, companies need to be alive and need to still keep the business. So you need specialized human resources, and most of the time specialized equipment, because all of the technologies that are emerging now for the textile industry are quite different from the ones that we have seen in the past. I'm working in textiles just for 9 years now, but 8 years now, but what I see is that most of the machines were for a long time in the textile industry more or less the same, with some optimizations, but more or less keeping the same structure. At this point, we are talking about completely different equipments, completely different investments. So, of course, without this support from the European Commission and from national funds as well, it's impossible for the companies at the moment that we are living now for the textile business in Europe, very difficult to continue this without this kind of support. Regarding challenges, yes, bureaucracy and these kind of things is always a challenge, but I guess the most important is to guarantee that we can keep these kind of support, and then the challenge we will be there to overcome, I guess. So
thank you, Anna. Acerina, perhaps you have a comment to that as well.
Yeah, for us as a small company, fundings are really, really important. Also because we have a great technology, but we want to keep developing. We don't want to stay there, right? We want to keep finding new products to make all textile products recyclable. So I would say challenges, of course, what was mentioned already, bureaucracy, the time, of course. But I would say the main challenge is really having access to a specific type of funding that can tackle the main challenge that we are facing in Europe. So I would say that I don't want to talk too much about it, but I would say specific funding to tackle specific problems that we have. Sorry, there is a question in the chat I would like to address. I don't know if I can have 1 minute. Is that possible?
Yes.
Because it's super relevant. They were mentioning about the environmental impact of our machinery, and that's super important. I did not have enough time to really explain how does it work. I'm really happy to jump in a call with anyone that has questions. But basically, we have a closed-loop heating system that ensures a low consumption of energy. And this is key. We cannot add additional process that will generate more CO2 than what is already existing, right? But for this reason, we have developed all this machinery being aligned with the Eco-Design Directive from EU for textile machinery. And also, on top of that, we have done LCA that combine our solution with recycling technologies to see, okay, how is the emissions, how can we reduce the emissions? And what we saw is that even with our additional process, we can reduce the emission by 50% if the recycling is happening. So yes, of course, we are adding a process, but we are really mindful of what we are doing. We just don't want to create a bigger problem. We really want to solve a problem.
And just to summarize, then, of course, we do have a great opportunity with all the developments that are ongoing in Europe now, and to collaborate and also to see where the different technologies do fit in the system that we're working towards will be extremely important. And we do need collaboration also moving forward. And I think with that, our time for the first panel is up. So I hand over to Dirk again. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Lisa. You've been excellent. I mean, both in terms of timing, you are actually bang on time, 10:25. And I'm also, a side note, was happy to see that our first panel has been entirely female, which in the textile industry is probably a premiere. So thanks all of you for that first round of discussion. Very interesting. Let's move on immediately with our second panel, focusing on safe, low footprint products, processes, and responsible supply chains. And I hand over now to Edwin Maes from Centexbel. Edwin, please, the floor is yours.
Also, thank you for the introduction. Also, on my behalf, a good morning. I'm Edwin Maes, and I work for Centexbel, which is the Belgian Textile and Plastic Conversion Institute that is doing R&D, and we function also as a testing and competence center. Regarding the safe, low footprint product processes, responsibility, supply chain, this is a very important topic, a very difficult topic, because the textile industry has a huge supply chain, mixing many materials and chemicals, and it's not easy to find a sustainable solution currently in the market. So our panel will talk a little bit more about on top of this topic, or about this topic. First up is Melanie Mikl. She is a team lead product innovations for Hugo Boss, a name that we all well known. And I give the floor to Melanie.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, also from my side. I think I can bridge very nicely from our first panel to the second one. So happy to start also the second panel. My name is Melanie Mikl. I'm leading the product innovation team at Hugo Boss. I have 7 years of experience in corporate innovation and brand development in the fashion industry. And the purpose of our team is to close the gap between innovators and pre-scale innovations and implement them into our product portfolio. We do so by creating an innovation ecosystem and act, you might say, as a kind of an incubator within the company, while we do fast piloting, invest in scaling and R&D, and also fastly implement product as limited innovation drops until full collection coverage is possible. With everything we do, we aim to support our sustainability strategy, mainly by enabling a new generation of materials. And we are a rather new team and see great opportunities for Hugo Boss as a global fashion brand with a global presence to achieve their vision to become the premium tech-driven fashion platform worldwide. And because we love fashion, we want to change fashion. But how do we do that? How do we change fashion? That's a big question, isn't it? I'm very happy for today's invitation and the chance to share some insights from the fashion brand side and on innovation and also the challenges we are facing. We see a clear need for alternatives for certain materials. Beside consumer demand and environmental impact, regulations as the EU Green Deal and the textile strategy, low footprint products become increasingly more important. When we speak about low footprint products, CO2 emissions is just one side and one aspect towards it, but we also mean with that, for instance, waste and microplastic play a big role in the fashion industry. They also leave a footprint on our planet. And I brought you one case my team is currently working on. We just launched this week the Boss the Change to also promote sustainability through innovation towards our consumer. And this is a further step towards our ambition to replace polyester and nylon in our product portfolio by 2030. Here we invested last year into a strategic partnership you might have seen also in the media with HeyQ Ionic. It's a cellulosic filament with a 5 million equity investment and a 4 million exclusive partnership agreement. If you're interested, you can also find further information with this QR code here on the little side towards our products. As we just have 5 minutes, we cannot deep dive. But our latest innovation drops were 3 outerwear styles where we were able to replace 100% polyester on the outer fabric for the first time ever in a woven. And a big shout out to our R&D team because I think this is really impressive. We are proud of our progress, but we still see a multi-year journey ahead of us to achieve our ambition. And as we also face some challenges, there's still a gap towards full scalability. And scalability is a big topic for us as a fashion brand. And we are fully committed to further invest, as you can see with the investments we already put last year, and we also continue so, but we cannot do it alone. Further public funds, especially for fashion, would be needed to create further incentives for global fashion brands to invest, because, well, we're still a public company and do need to remain competitive on the market as well. We also see that we, as a fashion brand, from designing, production, and selling textiles, get more and more involved in the beginning of the supply chain and in the fiber R&D, which is also fairly new to us as a fashion brand. Also, the duration of applications review we've seen is a little bit of challenging. We fully understand process take time. I believe we're also a corporate organization, we do know that. But to create change soon, we face a while facing a multi-month decision making, might result also in delays, as the fashion development process also is up to 1 year plus until products are released to the market. So faster funding opportunities would also help us tremendously. And lastly, I would like to highlight we've seen a challenge we had not on our radar, which is not necessarily directly linked to funding, but I also wanted to take the chance to mention it. It's a textile labeling regulation. Even if we manage to develop new materials and it's challenging to label them accordingly on the care label, because technologies evolve so fast and these materials are just new and we cannot categorize them into the product, which results then that we took a high investment into product, in the R&D, in the developing of it. And then at the end of the tunnel, let's say, we are not really able to launch these kind of products to our consumers. So a faster and easier way also to market such high investment products and give our consumer the right traceability and transparency towards it would help us quite a bit. So I hope you got an insightful glimpse into our journey for product innovation at Hugo Boss. And thank you for your time and also the invite, and feel free to ask questions and connect afterwards. So that's from my side.
Thank you, Melanie, for explaining what you are dealing with and how you are tackling the pathway to a sustainable future. And next up is Alessandro Canepa. He is the R&D manager at Fratelli Piacenza. Alessandro, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, and thank you for the invitation to this event. So a few words about Piacenza. So Piacenza is a company founded in 1733, so one of the oldest of the world and still run by the Piacenza family. But this does not mean that it is a very dynamic company. To give you some hints, in 2018 the company turnover was 38 million euro. In 2022, despite the COVID, will be 70, and last year we have also the chance to purchase Lanificio Cerruti, Lanificio Piemontese, and Arte Tessile. So the group will reach 100 million. So despite the pandemic, we had a huge growth because our market, which is the luxury fashion market, is rapidly growing. Our customers are Hermes, Dior, Kering Group, Louis Vuitton Group, and in general, those companies working in the high customized fashion. High customized means that we produce around 1 million meter only as Piacenza and 2 million as a group, but with an average dimension of the lot of 200 meters. So you can imagine how much is the customization for this kind of brands. So the company had a rapid evolution. Currently, we are sustained by renewable energies. We are investing a lot also in the recycling of the water to get independent also on this side. And we reached also a good balance between male and females, half and half. So also on this side, on the social side, the company is doing a lot. But what I want to highlight for this meeting is that we are at the center of the value chain. And one of the greatest challenges in the near future will be the digital product passport, because the brands which are purchasing our fabrics will request to the companies in the upper part of the value chain to collect the information necessary for the traceability, the durability, the environmental footprint and the PEF, the warranty, eventually as regards the quality of the fabrics, and in general all the information to measure the environmental impact of the goods. And as you know, the upper part of the value chain is the one where you have the greatest impact. But the problem is that the textile sector is based on SMEs. And even a company which is vertically organized like Piacenza, so we purchase the raw material and we arrive to the delivery of the fabrics. For the small lots, for the purchasing of some specific colors and so on, we rely on a lot of sub-suppliers. And these small companies will be object of a great push to collect a great amount of data, which currently is not known how to collect. And they need the support, and they need also the organization to carry out this job. Next slide, please. In this slide, this is object of the TRIC project, where we are working on the collection of the data for the DPP by blockchain. And this is only to give you a hint as regards the extreme complexity to collect all the data from a lot of different sources for all the certification which will be needed to fulfill the digital product passport, starting from the traceability and then going on, for example, for the certification of origin, for the circularity, for the PEF, and then as regards the use of hazardous chemicals and the social and ethical assessment. So you can imagine that all this very complex set of information should be collected by companies with an average dimension of 10, 15 people. And even if the Commission says that probably there will be an exemption of the SMEs to collect this data, in practice this will not happen, because the brands will request to be provided with this very complex set of information. And therefore, if the SMEs want to remain suppliers of companies like Piacenza and of the brands at the end of the value chain, they must collect this set of data. And currently, they are absolutely not aware of what will happen. So, to remain within the topic, and therefore, as regards the challenges which we expect in the near future and should be supported by funding. For first, there is a problem of standardization of the certifications of the data collected. Currently, the green claim proposal, for example, is going towards a good direction, but to leave it open to local labels or to local ways to treat the false claim is absolutely out of scope. We need only one single way to handle this data. And this needs funding, because even if you rely on PEF, for example, PEF needs a lot of refinements which are not there. On the second side, to collect this data, we need sensors which could be affordable for the SMEs, and eventually could be object of a retrofitting of current machineries. And there is no offer of something like this in this moment, and it is absolutely needed. If eventually these sensors could be also linked with blockchain, could be very good in order to guarantee that these data are true. Third point is the management of this data by the data spaces, and then we need good data spaces which can be affordable, and the portability between the data between the different data spaces is absolutely mandatory, because we cannot expect to have a single data space where all this data necessary for the digital product passport are saved. In my opinion, the saving in blockchain is mandatory, because this will state the responsibility of the partner of the value chain which declared the information. And if there is a false declaration in the final DPP, you can easily understand which is the weak point of the value chain declaring the false declaration. And this is possible only by the blockchain. Then the exploitation of artificial intelligence also to detect the reliability of the data. This is a request of the custom agency, for example, which is partner of Trick project, because they need to inspect the imported goods just to put all of us in the same situation and not allowing imported goods to be object of false claims. And finally, a way to support the companies in the funding, which could be also exploiting the open calls. And the open calls are a good way because they are fast and they put the companies in the condition to participate, because to participate to large projects is not so easy. But the dimension of the open calls, in my opinion, should not be too small, because this is a problem, because with too small funding is And finally, and I close, to support the local IT providers, because there is a problem of IT solutions which are fitting for the clothing, but are not fitting for the textiles. And therefore, the local IT providers who are working in the textiles should be supported to provide SMEs solutions which could be affordable for our purposes. Okay. Thanks a lot for the chance to be here, and I think that the question will come later, probably.
I hope so. Thank you, Alessandro. Please, if you have questions, put them in the chat so that we can discuss them later on after our last speaker, which is Johanna Nisian Carlson. Excuse me if I pronounce it wrongly, and that's Swedish. She's the co-founder and CEO of Vividai, and Johanna, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So thanks for a great introduction. And I am the co-founder and CEO of the company Vividai. So we are a Swedish-based, Gothenburg-based company developing removable textile prints. So what we have been doing, we have been developing this method to separate textile prints from the fabric. So why are we working with that problem? So today textile prints cannot be recycled. So meaning that all textiles that has a print on or a logo or something that you put on the textile cannot be recycled. And 15 to 20% of all textile has a print on, meaning that 15 to 20% cannot be recycled today. And that's where we come in. So we have developed a drop-in solution that we can actually tell the printers, use our technology together with your regular processes. So it's very easy to adapt to the already existing textile value chain. And this print later is able to be removed, and the textile can be recycled. So basically what we do, we make textile print circular. And yeah, we can go to the next slide. So you ask us to highlight some of the challenges we have been facing financial wise. And this is our own experience, but it's hard to get investment when you're working with textile innovation. Compared to other companies, I would say like this is the industry that investors in Sweden at least don't really understand. Why are we going to invest in solutions like this? And we have been lucky. We have got investors that really believe in us. Investors that has a connection to Renewcell. So they really understand the problem. Textile with prints today cannot be recycled. So that's like, I really highlight the importance of actually get funding from the union. Because to really scale up a product, that's expensive. And the most investors today want to have a commercialized product when they go in and invest. And that's a challenge for a company like us and also Resortecs. We need that funding to be able to get to a commercialized product. Because that's where you really can make a difference. And how are we working today? We work with big global brands today. And we're running this innovation together. Through like R&D projects, and we also look further how could we integrate it into the existing value chain. But just to be honest, it requires a lot of funding to actually push up textile innovations. And recycled material is necessary to achieve net zero and meet the coming EU regulations. We have brands that writing to us every single week and saying, we don't know how to handle these coming regulations. We really need your help. But for us to be able to help them, we need enough of funding to handle 10 customers at the same time. Today we can handle the half of the month, but to really scale it up and speed it up, investment is necessary. And yeah, then I added in the bottom, please follow us on LinkedIn or reach out to me if you have more questions. I see it's coming a couple of questions here. Should I take them now or should I take them afterwards?
I put off my mic. If you want to, please go ahead. It is for you, the last question. So
yeah. So I see that what is the chemistry based on the print? So basically the chemistry, that's our technology. We are following all EU regulations, and we're working very proactive with what we have in our formulation. But that's kind of our technology, so that's nothing I can disclose. But I can really be 100% sure that we use everything that are coming as a requirements in terms of the EU regulations. So basically today, that's a good question. We are mainly working with screen printing today, since 90% of the prints today are screen printed. So we said like, okay, let's go for the printing method where we can make the biggest difference. But we have started to apply and try it with different methods, and we have got very good results. But here is also a matter of like being a small team. What should you focus on and what should you wait with? But we will be able to handle more technologies in the future. We have build our technology on such a way that we can convert it to different printing methods.
There's a related question. I will come back to you, Alessandro, and Melanie, please come into the discussion as well. But I suppose that you are focusing on transfer prints that are foil-based, or do you also have tackle other prints?
Yeah, so we're working mainly with screen prints today. Screen printing. So transfer prints, that's where the tests have been starting, but we are not that far with transfer print. So it's screen printing.
Okay, but not printing that dyes the fiber, but that puts a layer upon the textile. Because for many people, it's confusing.
Yeah, it's a layer technology. Good for the clarifications.
You're welcome. So Alessandro and Melanie, perhaps I first have myself a question for Johanna still. Perhaps it's a blunt question, but would you exist without funding? If there were no funding, European funding or national funding, would you even exist as a company?
No, I don't think so, because like at least in the early phase, that was such an important step. And now the years between, we would have probably been able to fund ourselves. But now coming to the next stage when we're going to scale up, that funding is necessary. I would say it's like, yeah, it's so important for Vividai.
Melanie, perhaps a question then, a follow-up question for you. How important are these startups for a bigger company like Hugo Boss?
I would say very important, because we really, as I said, and the example I brought is just one in the full portfolio of alternative materials. These are the ones bringing in the technology and also bringing in the know-how, and this is what we rely on. And this is also why we invested in selected ones and say, okay, we do believe in you, and we do believe that we as a retailer and fashion brand in the end need these input channels to really succeed, and also obstacles we are facing in terms of sustainability to be resolved.
Thank you. Alessandro, I have a question for you. Are there projects that you would want to start upon, but you put them in the freezer because you don't have the funding now?
No, it's not a matter of funding, meaning that the main problem now is the uncertain legal framework as regards the digital passport, but this will start to be clear at the end of the year. I think that we would need the support of some topics, for example, in the water field, which is very important, especially because we would like to become independent, meaning to reach more than 90% of recycling of the water. And this is something which it's not a matter of funding. It's a matter that I don't find the right partner to carry out the job. The funding in the dimension of Piacenza is a secondary matter. The funding is something which is attractive to create a group, a consortium, and the greatest added value is the collaboration in a consortium. Obviously, in a consortium, you have also the academics who need funding. You have the smaller companies who need funding, and therefore the funding is like the honey where everything goes. But it's only an instrument. This is not the final goal. I understand the point of view of the startup here, because the problem of the funding is a key problem for the small companies, because you get funding when you develop the product. But then there is a moment when you have to make the scaling up, where the European Commission is not covering by funding your scale up, but you are too small for the venture capitalists. And this is a very hard moment for all the companies, because if you find an industrial investor who can invest on you because they trust on your idea, or you are what is in the valley of death. And this is a great lack of the European funding. In this phase, I think that the Commission should find a solution, because all the same instrument was too competitive. Now there is a new one, but you have only 2%, 3% chances to be funded. And we should need something which is in the middle, could support the funding to make the scale up also, for the technologies as well. I have a last comment, if I can.
Yes.
Here I have seen to talk a lot about recycling. But recycling is a solution. Our goal is to reduce the environmental impact. And there could be situations where recycling is more impacting than a linear process. So the measure of the impact of recycling is absolutely mandatory to understand if recycling is the right solution, or you have to rely, for example, on another solution, because our goal is not recycling. Our goal is to reduce the environmental impact. So there could be linear solutions which are less impacting than recycling ones. So the careful collection of the data, in my opinion, is absolutely mandatory, because at this moment we do not know yet which is the real impact of the processes. And if you don't measure, you don't take decisions based on data. So this is the message, because I have seen also in the chat a lot of comments as regards this topic.
Yes, perhaps going to the chat, there was a question regarding to microplastics, for instance, which is currently not always taken into environmental assessments. Perhaps the three panelists, do you take this into account, and how do you take this into account?
I could start. So basically what we're doing, those printing companies we are working with, we make sure that they are kind of following the brands and EU regulations. So basically we're not collaborating with screen printers that doesn't follow these regulations. So we put a requirement on those partners we're working with. So that's how we handling that question.
Alessandro? Alessandro, you still there?
I was muted. I had a problem because I couldn't get the last second. Can you repeat, please, the question?
Yes, there was a question regarding microplastics on solutions. Perhaps to go a little bit broader, I said that often microplastics are not taken into consideration when doing, for instance, LCA studies. But how are you dealing as a company with microplastics?
In our case, we work in natural fibers. Therefore, the problem of the microplastics is not affecting our production. There are cases where we mix some chemical products, but we rely also on the declaration of our suppliers as regards the release of the microplastics. As far as I understand, I think that we will have to think more in a wider vision, because in the future, if I'm not wrong, the object of the release will cover all the fibers, not only the plastics in the environment. There could be also natural fibers which are released in the environment, which will be object of a control. So we will have to take care of this, but it is quite an early moment, too early to work on this. So, and for our sector, I can admit that we are not so affected by the plastics, but because we are a niche of the market.
Thank you. Melanie, you obviously chosen this as a project because you want to replace the polyamide and the polyester. But perhaps what made you decide for this choice?
For sure. So also thank you, Alessandro, for highlighting this really interesting aspect in terms of the scope for microfibers in general. We also will take that into account or have discussed, but I think it's also wise to agree that we personally see the microplastic from synthetic fibers is a high priority. So this is why we set a clear scope here. We also see in the fashion industry in general, synthetic use is increasing tremendously, and we see a big impact on the planet for that. This is why we chose the scope for us to tackle. And also, as I mentioned in my 5-minute presentation, it's still a big obstacle or a big challenge for us to even achieve this one until 2030, what we set ourselves as an ambition.
And what do you see as the main challenges?
The main challenges, as I said, on the one hand, are the funding and the general setup from us as a fashion brand being involved in these kind of projects, especially on R&D level on fiber. But also on the other hand, as R&D has it in its nature, you never are guaranteed a certain outcome. For sure, we need to have a look, especially on performance levels, polyester, as it's that downside for the environmental environment. It has also its upside when it comes to performance, like a certain versatility. It's very durable, which is its biggest downside as well. So we also need to figure out to find the right prospect or the right aspects for the replacements in our garments to also serve as a premium brand or consumer with the correct product quality.
Okay, thank you. And there was a remark on the Horizon Europe project. Inside Horizon Europe, you can find for SMEs under the pillar 3. It is important to have in mind that Horizon Europe is the framework program for research and innovation. Maybe for market upscaling, we need alternative complementary programs or fundings. There was then a related question, how relevant is this for organization? Some of you already stressed this out, but perhaps you can clarify a little bit more, Johanna. I don't know if you want to comment on this.
Yeah, what could you repeat that?
Well, how relevant is it for organizations to have these several programs? Perhaps you can give some examples where you use bigger projects and smaller in order to clarify this a little bit more.
Do you mean the importance for brands working with startups as us?
No, the importance of funded projects that are on a larger scale and then funded projects on a smaller scale. Perhaps if you have some examples where you used a larger project and where you used a smaller project to clarify this.
I mean, we are a part of Regio Green Tex, the huge project. So basically there, like the importance for us there has been all the connections, and we get connected with all those partners that make it possible. I think Acerina were highlighting it good before. We need to do this together, and there you really need to find the network necessary. So that's like where the big project has been super important for us to really reach all the necessary actors, and the smaller projects has rather been you could test very specific areas and you could really like work through that together, because that's our experience. But it's hard within these huge projects to kind of work with like kind of specific problems. Then it's more like an overview and like, okay, we do this together and we push it in different ways. But the smaller project has been more specific focused. So they have a little bit different purpose, and that's talking from our own experience.
Okay. I don't know, Melanie, if you want to add something to that.
Nothing to add particularly from my side. I would agree.
Alessandro, do you want to add something that was said?
Yes, I think that so the dimension of the project is needed because if you want to reach a complete vision of a problem, especially in a very complex case, you need a critical mass, and therefore a large project is necessary. Also to get the covering of the value chain, for example, from the raw materials to the clothing and so on. On the other hand, these large projects are very hard to handle for SMEs because they do not have the resources to carry out a participation in the full project. So probably the solution for with the cascade funding is a good compromise where you create in the large project the infrastructure and the complete network of high-level knowledge and research and innovation, and then you support the SMEs with the rapid selection and handling process by the cascade funding. I have seen in the recent past that the cascade funding, in some cases, was too small. There is a good window, but I think it should be fitted for a specific purpose. Therefore, not too small, I think that 50,000 euros is too small, should not go below 100,000 if you want to do something seriously. And it could reach 200, 250,000. Therefore, because it depends on the topic. If you want to create, for example, I don't know, a recycling system for depuration, you need money. And with 50,000, you can't do anything. So you must be very careful. And also, in my opinion, it is necessary to avoid those tricks used in the cascade funding, saying, okay, you get funding, but you get funding in services provided by the consortium. So this is not so elegant, and in my opinion, should be specifically carefully managed by the companies, providing good, simple solution to SMEs to access to the cascade funding. This is a good balance, a good solution.
Thank you for clarifying that. There was a completely different question. What is your view on recycled polyester in garments? I perhaps think that is a question for Melanie, but the others, please respond as well if you have something to add.
Sure, I can start. So thank you very much for the question. And also when we started our project, we evaluated and also set our strategy. But from our point of view, we clearly decided against, because we do believe in closed loop recycling, and PET bottles should remain with the PET bottles. And we in the fashion need to find our own solution. And therefore we just said also the microplastic with PET or recycled polyester is not solved. And we set a different course here from a strategic point of view within our company.
Thank you. I don't know if somebody else wants to comment on that.
No, I fully agree with Melanie. That was a very great answer.
Thank you. Then going back to the chat to see if there are more questions. Thank you, Anna. In case we have to get in contact with your organization, I think that is, in collaborations. Of course, the participants, you all have the chat as well. If there are very specific questions on technology, and I'm sure that you will get in touch with the person asking the questions. Perhaps some last question. Do you have future ideas for funded projects? Perhaps to start with Melanie.
I would be lying and say if we don't have ideas for future funding, so but I can't disclose in particular. But of course, we are interested. We're always eager and looking into funding opportunities. And this is something we would strongly encourage, that we also would like to encounter more within our corporation.
Okay. Perhaps, Alessandro, I would ask the question a little bit different to you. Would funding enable you to participate more in sharing data, collecting data, because you emphasized a lot on this issue? Like, for instance, with standardization organizations as STEM, would you see their benefit to get funding?
Absolutely, yes, because we need to share data in order to support the transfer of the data, the portability of the data through the value chain, to support especially the brands to release the digital passport. But in general, I think that future funding will be needed also to support the collection of the data by the sensors and the interpretation of this data, because there are a lot of ambiguities in the calculation of some impact measurements that needed the sharing and the research to understand the right balance on how to handle these measures. Finally, I think that we have also to provide some secondary data based on the primary ones, and in some cases we lack of primary data as regards the processes. So yes, the funding will be absolutely needed to boost this process. Otherwise, we are, I think, quite in trouble. Yes.
Melanie, for you, I suppose this is, you said already that it is very important for you that you wouldn't probably not exist if you wouldn't have funded. But do you have already ideas in mind if you would get future funding?
I think you mean Johanna, right?
Johannes, excuse me. Yes.
No worries.
I mean, we are applying for more European funding, and we know with this funding we will get the product out on the market much faster. It's more a matter of like cutting time, and the more time we can cut, the faster we can actually make a difference, because it doesn't make a difference in our small, I mean, our own small production and in our lab. We need to have it pushed out to be able to actually make the difference, and with funding we can do that much faster. So it's in our big interest to do it. So that's why we keep applying for European funding.
Okay. So thank you all three for answering the questions and elaborating on them. I think it was very inspiring, stressing out that it is very important for you in order to get the textile industry circular and way more sustainable. Okay, Dirk, I want to hand over the floor back to you.
Thank you, Edwin, again for managing that quite well within the time, and thanks to also these three panelists. As you said, very interesting, diverse, different aspects, but very interesting discussions. We are swiftly moving forward, but as I promised, let's have a short break, 5 maximum 10 minute break, and then after that we will continue with our third panel discussion, which will be moderated by Thomas Gries from Aachen. So let's give ourselves just a 5-minute break, and then we resume our discussions. Okay, so see you in at 11:15. Thank you. So we're back for part 2 of our webinar. I hope you're still with us. I see many people are still online, so let's immediately continue with our third panel, which will be coordinated by Thomas Gries from Aachen University. I hope, Thomas, you are with us, and I'll happily give you the floor. Thomas, are you there? Yes. He's walking. But we cannot hear you, Thomas. I think you are me. We still cannot hear you.
Because I think we're supposed to. I think he's there twice. Yeah, but I'm allowed.
Hello, Thomas Gries is speaking. It's a pleasure for me to guide you through the session, Digitalize Textiles, Manufacturing, Supply and Business Models. And I welcome you very heartily to this session. And of course, this is one of the main transformations. As we heard, we have also other transformations. So I think our entire industry is on the move. The business model itself for producing textiles and how to design textiles, for which purposes, but also the trend that everything has to be sustainable and, of course, digitalized. And therefore, I'm very proud to open here the third panel. And I would kindly introduce, on the one hand, Gilberto Laurino from Smartex. I had the pleasure to meet him in May, and I'm happy that he has joined our today panel. Then we have a presentation from Florence Lutens from Ariane Innovation. And as far as I've been informed, Philip Ribiera cannot participate, although Lectra and its product is a key for digitalization. But we will see how we can handle that. A short introduction of his slides shall be possible to fuel the discussion. And therefore, I would kindly ask you, Gilberto, to start with your statements.
I did.
Okay, I think Gilberto has an issue with his mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Here you are.
Thank you so much, Tim. If you can pull up to the next slide, I will be very quickly on a quick presentation of SmartEx, and then exactly where we are heading and where the textile industry needs the most support. So, for those who are not familiar, at SmartEx, we are a startup. I guess we are already a big one, 150 people. But we started with camera systems. If you see over there in the first picture, those little cameras, that used to be our first, our product, our main product, because we started implementing cameras in textile machines so we could avoid waste. Many waste of the textile industry comes from defects and faults. And that was our main product, and we started, and we were supported by the EU, which was a crucial grant for us, EIC. But one beautiful day, we were installing our cameras in Italy and Turkey, and we asked our client, hey, can you give us access to the internet for us to connect these cameras? And my Italian client, he says, what do you mean by internet in the factory? And that was a moment that we realized, oh, wow, this is maybe the largest industry in the world that is still running on pen and paper and touched by internet. So we decided to raise much more money and increase the product sets. And now we install those tablets, as you see in the second picture. Now all our clients, they run their production in our tablet screens, PO number, machine number, yarn information. Also those platforms, as you see in the third image. So our clients, they can see their factories in real time. Everything is connected to the internet, and they can manage it in a digital way. And more recently, if you see the bottom right diagram, more recently, we started being approached by fashion brands and by other players like dyeing houses or garment houses to start getting these data. And this is where things get interesting, my friends, because the textile industry is very complex and fragmented, as you know. Like the food industry, you have the farmer, the distributor, and the supermarket. But to build a t-shirt, we need like 10 different guys. And we are here in this middle, in this knitting and dyeing stage right now, which is where most of the technologies looks like they don't want to come here. Everybody goes to the edges, to materials technology or to retail and fashion technology. So here we started developing this, and I believe this is the trend that the EU should also build, which is getting all of these players digitized, giving them tools that they can work better in a digital way with zero waste, and we can help the manufacturers, and then we will help the fashion brands and the consumers. So that's why we started building these QR code systems, as you see in the bottom left picture. These QR code systems that go with the fabrics and go with the materials, and they survive through all the processes, so we can transport these data to the front. Okay, so right now we already raised more than $40 million to invest in these technologies, but many other things are to be done. And if you can go to the next slide, please, just to touch on that, because most of the problems of the industry are in this middle: knitting, weaving, dyeing, and water-wet processes. And that's where we need the most innovation and the most technologies. And nobody will solve this industry alone. I'm not saying that SmartEx will solve everything alone. I'm sure it will not. Right now, actually, we are very focused at the knitting, like circular knitting machines. For those who don't know, those are for t-shirts and sportswear, but there are many more. There are weaving, dyeing, like home textiles or suits. All of these materials, they have different processes to be manufactured. So there is a lot to be done. That's a huge opportunity also for the EU. I listen lots of my European clients complaining that there are fabrics made in Asia, and they ship the fabrics to Europe, and then they put the label, oh, this is fabrics made in Portugal or made in Turkey or Italy, and there is no way to prove it, right? So it's needed to have lots of more technology, not just in the yarn, DNA traceability, fiber traceability, but also in the knitting, weaving, dyeing, with these QR codes or some other technologies that are over there. Garmenting, cutting tables. We have here our friends from Lectra, which is also a very important player here on this equation, and eventually retail, because we believe that the future is bright. It is the best time ever to work in technology, AI, and the textile industry is so behind many other industries. So lots of opportunities for us. We are very excited for that. And in the future, there is no way our garments will be produced in the same way. Everything will be digitized with a digital ID, with all the information about where was it made, which countries, which factories, what is the environmental impact of our garments. The digital product passport will need this information as well. And of course, in an efficient way and with no waste. Okay, so let's make the textile industry beautiful again. And what I can ask from the legislators and the stakeholders is to give an attention to here. 20% of the pollution of the water in the world comes from this industry, especially in the dyeing processes. So lots of help is needed here and lots to be done. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Gilberto, for that very inspiring pep talk, I would say, to support the European textile industry and indeed highlight some of the critical challenges that we have. I'm a little bit taking over because, as you had seen before, Thomas, our moderator, is actually checking in the airport, in some airport somewhere. So I will try to step in for now, and then hopefully Thomas will be back in a few minutes. So you can see we try to be flexible. So let's then immediately move on, I think with Florence, who would be next on our panel, focusing on developing a kind of digital platform for the textile industry. Florence, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Very nice to come after such an inspiring and enthusiastic talk. So, good morning. I'm Florence from RDD Innovation. We're a Belgium-based company. We were founded in 2020, so also still rather young. And we are the company behind the EleConnect platform that we also launched in 2020. And what we did, or why we started initially as a company, is exactly what's been mentioned here as well, already by several of the players or of the panelists, is that if we talk about change in the industry and where we are heading to, that collaboration is key. And Gilberto already mentioned it, the textile and fashion industry is complex, absolutely. And especially if we look into circularity, because then you get a whole new group of players that we need to learn how to collaborate with, that we need to understand how they work, how you can collaborate. So back in 2020, we really saw that there was a need to build bridges between the different islands that are in the industry and in the different segments in the market. Especially at that time, because it was COVID and all the traditional ways to find partners, the fairs, the events we go to were not there. So we saw the opportunity to really leverage technology to build those bridges and to really bring the entire ecosystem together. And what we did is we've been building on a network of companies, actors from all across the value chain that is built not only on the topic of sustainability, because not everyone is already there yet, but also on the topics of collaboration and digitalization. And what we wanted to do, and what we still do, is we want to offer anyone, and that was very important for us, anyone in an organization. So not only the CEO or the innovation manager or the sustainability manager, but also the young people who are new to the industry, everyone who's working or who has some part when it comes to transformation, that they can find a next step. Even if they don't have the network, they don't have the knowledge yet, that they have a go-to place to find whatever next step that they need at that time. We do that in different ways. What we do via the platform is, first of all, we help people in building the network, and especially as well in visualizing the industry. It's a very fragmented industry. There are a lot of players that are active in the value chain, but it's sometimes very difficult to find them. So that's the first thing that we do, is to make it really easy to see who is doing what, who is located where as well, and to make it accessible to anyone who is in search for it. We've started with mapping the entire ecosystem around recycling as a first, and we're launching new portfolios after that. So we help companies save time in doing the market research, so they can really focus on the action. And next to that, we also really leverage AI and technology, not only for doing market research, so you can find whatever you need as a company, but also for matchmaking. So we try to capture as much of the challenges, and I'll come back to that after, as much of the challenges that we see within the organizations, we learn from it, and we see we try to learn, okay, how can we now match you in the most efficient way, and how can we use technology as well, so we can learn from it and we can do it faster and more efficient and better every time. And next to that, the network itself is also very much based on peer-to-peer learning. What we often say is that if it comes to sustainability in the organizations, is that there is no manual available yet. Would be very great if it would be, but there's no manual available yet, and people can learn so much if they just listen to each other, especially if we go outside the current borders or the current segments. So we really try to facilitate to learn from partners that you would not meet if you are active in your normal networks. And if you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so we were asked to also look a bit at the challenges, and with Ellie Connect, what is our main purpose is to act as a facilitator, as a matchmaker within the industry for both innovation and sustainability. And over the past 3 years, we are a new type of business model. So of course, what we see in our ecosystem also impacts the growth of us as a company. The more we can do for the members, the bigger our impact can be as a company. And we see a lot of possibilities, a lot of opportunities, but they're also linked with a lot of challenges. And I think one of the first challenges that we really see is that the reality today is that even if we are investing and we are going towards sustainability, for the companies, it's always we want to be environmental sustainable, but we also need to create a financially sustainable future, because otherwise, if you are not financially stable as a company, it's very difficult to invest. And for many of the challenges that we see that appear on the platform, can be really any kind of question that they can ask. The solutions are not yet available, and there's a need for investment. There's a need for it's related as well to a lot of risks to create that, to create solutions as well. And there we see that because the direction is not clear yet, the companies who are mainly SMEs, and also not to forget, if we look at the circular value chain, we also work together with a lot of social enterprises, NGOs, like the collectors. If they want to invest in a new type of business model, in a new type of collaboration, they are the first ones who will need investments or that will need support to do so, because they don't have the means themselves to do, but they do have a crucial part in the value chains that need to be built. And we see there that it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of risk, and also I think that we cannot underestimate the culture still, because it's so uncertain for the SMEs where we're going at. There's a lot coming that they prefer to say, as long as the market is not there yet, we're just going to wait a bit. We're going to look a bit at the other ones around before we start doing the investments ourselves. And we do see there that the projects that we've already supported, that support coming from the local entities, also from on European level, that can really be a facilitator to do the investments needed to explore the possibilities of the new collaborations and to dare to go to that next step. And then I follow as well what was mentioned in the previous panel, that the first investment is needed to see what is possible, to build the first pilots, to build the first test projects. But then we cannot forget the step after. How can we now scale it up? Because there's still a lot of projects that we know it is possible, but then the next step is to see how can we now make it financially viable to really scale up, and what is needed for that. So I think what we can say is that we see so many opportunities, but sometimes the companies need a little push. And financially, I think there's a lot possible. So the support of what is mentioned as well in this initiative can play a very big difference in the industry.
Thank you very much, Florence, for that. And I see meanwhile Thomas is all settled in. So Thomas, can I give it back to you? Indeed, Philippe Rivera apologized for family private reasons he could not join us, but we have 1 or 2 slides. I don't know if you were able to comment a little bit on what he has shared. Thomas, please.
Sure, I can do. Lectra is, of course, well known, and especially in garment production. After the fabric production and finishing, when you cut before sew, then Lectra plays a very important role over now 50 years. And like its competitors, it has set up, of course, not just for the control of the machine, but even above that, very early digital solution. So I would say in clothing manufacturing, the cutting process and its digitalization has ever since played an important role in the digitalization of garment manufacturing. Next slide, please. And this is how it works basically. So first of all, there is the cutting itself. So you have to organize one layer cutting or multi-layer cutting. You have to make a most efficient cut with low waste. So here it already shows that digital methods are the key for also waste reduction. And last but not least, then you have already the information inside, which then can be more than just operating the cutting, but also integrating it in a full full line digitalization solution over the entire garment manufacturing. And here you can see that Lectra and also others which have achieved a lot are looking for even more integration. This might be also a starting point for the discussion following. Next slide, please.
It's only those slides.
Those two.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I already put the starting question for the upcoming solution. We have seen in from these 3 panelists, on the one hand, digital.
We have a bad connection, Thomas. Thomas, can you hear us? We can't hear Thomas. No, I don't think. Yeah, I think he's yeah, now you're back. Okay, you were cut off, Thomas, for a second.
Oh, sorry for that. I just wanted to fuel the discussion. So we have three different, let's say, entry gates for digitalization. One is the last one, coming from the machine and taking this as a starting point with product information. The other one is, like Gilberto showed, is coming from a camera system and taking this forward as a and the last but not least is to have an overall, let's say, platform, which Florence showed us. And the big question is, what I feel was also felt this time at ITMA, what is the next step? How can we integrate these different entries, and how can we encourage stakeholders in the textile value chain to take one of those starting points? I think one is good enough, but and then to have an integrated digital solution. What do you think, Gilberto? Because I'm really surprised. Last time I met you, you had 120 people. Now you have 150. So I'm with this speed, maybe next year Easter you might hit the 1,000. But just kidding. What camera systems we have done a lot also in our institute since ages. So it started actually in the 80s with the first set of neural networks doing image processing and whatever in failure marks, for example, in carpets and weaves, and but also to evaluate cotton quality. So now, and it took many attempts, which all failed to integrate camera systems in textile processes. And now there seems to be a kind of game changing. What has happened?
That's a great question. All my investors ask me that question as well. But in the last few years, we saw some inflection points in some technologies, like textiles. If you look at the textile industry, textile material is a very complex material. It's flexible, it's breathable, it's subjective. A defect for you might not be a defect for me. A defect for Zara might not be a defect for Gucci. Can you imagine like a robot ironing clothes? I would love to have one in my home, but it's a very complex material to handle with robots and technology. So what happened recently was this machine learning, this looks cheesy nowadays, but machine learning actually works very well to do like a human comparison. And we feel it that the machine learning algorithms, they are now at a human level to do quality control with all the subjectivities of the material. That's one. Second, the camera systems, they are now more and more commoditized because of the smartphones, all the sensors. So now we can have a camera system for 10,000 euros with high resolution, with 8 or 10 cameras. And 10 years ago, these would cost like 50K or 100K. So it starts making sense for our clients. So the textile industry is a very gross margin tight industry, right? You can't ask that guy in Bangladesh that has 2% gross margin, that is asking loans to pay salaries. You can't ask this guy to buy a bunch of robots and do a bunch of optimizations. So all of the technologies we implement, first, it's to save money to the clients, to the factory, and second, it's to do traceability. I see many startups and I see many technology companies, and everybody's with great intentions and doing a great job, but I see many people trying to force the supply chain to use something. Like fashion brand is forcing the supply chain to use a new software, and the factories, they need to have people manually inputting water consumption or energy consumption, and it's a bit like of a shit in, shit out sometimes, because like it's a manual input, like you can cheat the system, the data is not very reliable, and ends up that will add costs to the materials, because now factories, they need to hire a person or a process to do that, and they need to pay for the new platform. We don't think that's the future. We think that the future is every single factory needs to have technologies that first saves them money and they become more efficient. And then with those technologies, we connect the bridges, and then we do traceability. So that's why I believe it is so different. And that's how we have been growing a lot. And yeah, next year we will be like 250-ish people if things continue like that, not 1,000.
Yeah. So, Florence, how do you lure in people onto your platform? Because I know from discussions, for example, with Karl Mayer, they came on platform, that they are still surprised that of the reluctance of textile companies to join in. Totally different from other fields of industry. I know it from the paper industry, where there is a higher degree and a higher willingness to join in platforms. How do you motivate companies? What is the benefit for joining and taking this extra effort, beside all other things, like Gilberto said? So a company has a lot of challenges to face, and then you come around with the platform and.
No, absolutely. It's a very good question. Also one that we hear a lot. But maybe the first thing is that as long as a company, if you're not fully dedicated towards transforming your organization, then it's no use even to join a platform or to join a community, because you need to give your people as well the time and the resources to really act on it, because it's when you are starting to create the culture in your organization that you can work on sustainability, see where your organization can go to, that the questions will pop up, and that questions and needs for an ecosystem, for a network are there. But it really starts with the first step, saying as a company, we believe and we see that this is the only way forward, and we're not going to wait until all legislation is there and we have the exact framework of what we need to do now. But it's the organizations that say now we want to start, and we know that a lot of questions will pop up, and that realize that they cannot do it alone, because I think it's an industry as well that's been used to working very close for years and years and years, and that went very well. And now it's changing totally, because now you don't have all the knowledge in-house anymore. You don't have the network yet. So it's an entire change of culture as well in the organizations, and that takes time. So how do we motivate them? I think the first thing what we do is to show what others are doing, to show concrete examples of this is what is already happening in the market, and this is what companies are already doing who are not waiting, and how they are taking steps forward, and as well showing that it's not always about becoming circular overnight, but that they can start by taking very, very small steps, that they learn to go outside of their current network, and that they just start creating the open mind to listen and to see what's happening and to understand the value chain they're in. So it's first about really advocating, showing the possibilities, inspiring. So the companies know, okay, we want and we will dedicate time and resources to explore the possibilities for us. And then the moment you have that mindset, we know the needs will come there. We can guide them within the ecosystem. We can guide them to partners. We can guide them to many, many use cases. But the first thing that we're now focusing on is really to show why it's so important, and especially for the ones that are not yet acting on these topics or on innovation, to show that now is really, really the time to take steps, no matter how small they are, but to take the steps forward.
Yes. Our session is always going to end. What I would like to ask Electra is how to integrate the design as well, but also then, let's say, a consumer interface like an avatar or whatever, so that you can create your. So there is, for example, a trend like beside B2B and B2C, there is a C2P. So the customer designs a product and then brings it into the value chain. So I think this might be an option. What do you see from your cloud side? So the cloud is one thing to share information, but how much is it really an integration of workflow? So as I said, from the yarn to the customer, from the customer to the manufacturer, maybe later. So is this already there, or is your platform more a platform to share information, or is it really workflow?
No, we're not workflow. We are really the ones for the matchmaking and the facilitating. So it's about getting the insights, but not the integration. Because what we do the connection to companies or to softwares that do the integration within the companies itself. But for us at this moment, it's really about giving the connections, but to give a bit of an idea of where we want to go to is we want to make it as easy as possible. Everyone now is used to asking ChatGPT, hey, I'm looking for this or for that. We want to make it as easy as that as well, that if someone has a question, they get an instant and a validated answer as well of what they can do next.
I will just add, if you allow me, I will just add that the importance of these initiatives like EURATEX and SmartEx and these grants on the European side, because these factories, they are really, really tight on margins and on budgets for R&D many times. And what I see, and we have seen that in Portugal and Turkey, is when there are government supports, even if it is very little, when there are government supports to align factories and technology companies and textile institutions, things unlock faster. And all of a sudden you have 7 guys that never spoke in their lives. All of a sudden you have these 7 guys aligned and working. And we have done some Portuguese grants on that with vertical companies, but also with fragmented companies, garments, yarn spinnings, and so on. And this really unlocks things. So keep doing that and keep pushing for that, because again, this industry really needs. And when you go to an automotive car factory, you see robots everywhere doing everything, and then you go to a textile factory and it looks like you are in the 70s again. So the industry really needs these type of incentives. So if I would pass a message here today, would be to try to double down on that. And the planet needs, the industry needs, and is the best for the world.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gilberto. I think this is almost a take-home message for all the participants, that we need some incentives, that we need some activities to create best practice examples, for example, and to steer our industry in a more integrated data world, as it can be seen in other sectors, but not so much in textiles. Maybe it would be interesting also from the audience or from by comments, those textile companies which are interlaced with the automotive industries, how they already are integrated, but because they have to follow the data integration of the automotive industry, and could be, of course, also a role model or somebody to ask for experience from these sectors in order to play an important, let's say, catalyst for the digital transformation of our industry. Gilberto, you raised your hand, or?
I was saying, totally agree. And those industries like the automotive, they have regulation that they need to follow. Yeah. And in the textile industry, there is very little regulation so far. Yeah. So it's one of those cases that regulation can really make things align and align incentives, as long as, again, it doesn't become a tax and doesn't hurt the suppliers. Again, they are already smashed enough. It needs to be something that helps everyone. And I guess this digital product passport, for example, is a great example of that, as long as there are the right tools to get the right data. Because even with blockchain, if you don't have data, blockchain is not doing anything there, right? So
that's right.
You need to have the right data.
Yeah. And the same experience, maybe Florence, you can have some words on, if you have a platform, for example, we have also one tech space, and the challenge is always to get the critical mass. If there are only 100 or some 100 people, why to go and step into, isn't it? How far are you in that respect, Florence?
No, absolutely. And it's not only about having the people on the platform, it's also about letting them interact. Because for us, the main where we really can make a difference is the more challenges or questions, needs from the ecosystem we capture, the better we learn where the needs are, and the better we can connect as well and show what the power of an ecosystem is. So absolutely, it's a step-by-step process. It's also one of the reasons why we not only have members that can join, but next to that, we've been building a database of the companies that are already on the radar that we can already map. So you not only have an insight into the companies that are already on the platform, but that we can also show what's beyond that. And step by step, I think it will be, we will see, and like the moment it will start changing in the industry, then it can go very, very fast. But in the meantime, we're doing it from two ways. So we're not only dependent on the companies that are on it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm looking at the agenda. So the time for the session is over. And I would love to hand over to my dear friend Bras Costa for the next moderation. Thank you, all of you, for your very valuable contribution. And sorry for the short break due to the security check. But I think it was a fruitful discussion, as I heard. And thank you so much. And please don't stop to transform digital or sustainable.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas, for trying to manage, from the airports. Again, we are all very flexible. You can see how the textile industry is resilient and flexible, managing from wherever we are. So that's appreciated. And again, I do want to apologize, Philip from Lecta. He was really keen to share his ideas towards this Step 2030, but he really couldn't make it last minute. But he is, as Thomas said, this is an important player, an important company, very much committed to make this transition and to invest in innovation also in the textile or towards the textile industry. So having said that, we will indeed now move to the fourth panel, the last one of this morning, which focuses on smart high performance materials, and this will be coordinated by Bras Costa from Portugal, GTV Portugal. Bras, please, your role.
Hello everyone. Good morning. Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Bras Costa. I'm the general manager of CITEV. CITEV is the Technological Center for Textile and Clothing Industries in Portugal, and as well of CENTIS, Center for Nanotechnologies and Smart Materials. who is not completely focused on textiles, but more than 50% of activity related to textiles, high-performance textiles, of course. I'm the president of Texonet. Texonet is an organization involving all or the more important research institutes on textiles in Europe. So, yeah, now we are dealing maybe with the forgotten part of the sustainability of textiles, because the big stress between performance and sustainability is really a challenge for the future. And yeah, we have the chance today to have an amazing panel. Please, the next slide. Yeah, we have here 3 organizations very active and with big knowledge about this point. So first of all, I will pass the word to Christoph Beiner to present himself. Please, Christoph.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, first of all, and I'm really happy to be able to present Karl Mayer's support for the Step2030 Sustainable Textiles European Partnership here today. I think there were lots of very interesting topics already risen in this panel here. I would like to first introduce what Karl Mayer is, who Karl Mayer is, what we do already, and then I'd like to really go into the point, what do we expect from a partnership on this European level, and where do we think that funding possibilities can really enhance innovation towards a more sustainable future in the textile industry. Yes, first of all, who are we? Our profile. Just as a question, can you please just click all? Yeah, thank you very much. That's great. So we are an international group with German roots. So we're not one of the smaller companies, but rather in the larger scale. We are having 3,100 employees worldwide, located at 18 different locations. We do have qualified agencies really around the world. So we do have a big network. But on the other hand, we're still family-owned. And located in Germany, close to Frankfurt. We are developing warp knitting machines, flat bed knitting machines, and warp preparation machines. And our ambition is and has always been innovation. So we are a driver for innovation. We see ourselves as the leader in the market in our segment. And therefore, we're doing research and development. We are spending up to 20% of our yearly revenues into research and development. We do have a huge customer support built up around the world. We do provide digital solutions, as Professor Gries already introduced by our company KM On. And last but not least, of course, we're producing our own machines around the world, in Germany and in China. And we're providing really direct solutions and direct innovation to the market again. But now the point is, where are our markets? So, of course, our markets have shifted in the recent years from Europe. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. It's all fine. Good.
Oh, great. Okay. My headphones are just complaining about having a low battery. Wait, I'll just change into the.
So sorry. So our markets have been shifting in past decades from being centered to Europe, moreover to be centered to Asia, including mainly China. So our developments, of course, focus on our customers who are located as a big part in China. And what we'd really like to see from the Step2030 proposal, and you can go to the next slide, please, is we as Karl Mayer, we are already there. We are inventing the future. We are trying to bring these inventions to the market, so they are being innovations really to our customers. But the Step2030 initiative can really enhance this collaboration, this cross collaboration with European partners, so that we can develop more solutions to the European market. So we would like to see that the Step2030 proposal really supports SMEs in Europe, mainly in the textile manufacturing area, you can really click through if you like through the slide. Yeah, thank you. To really give those SMEs the ability and the resources to push innovation together with us as Kelheim as a machine manufacturer, so that we can bring innovation into the market and into the textile value chain. Yeah, I think this is really our main message today, and I'm really happy to answer any questions that are coming forward, and I'd really like to enhance that what we've heard today was already very interesting. So mainly Alessandro, for example, what you've said, like the experience of the textile manufacturers in Europe, that you're just being confronted with such a high burden of delivering perfect products to your customers is really, it's a high burden already. So we need support and we need more resources for textile manufacturers to be able to focus on innovation further. Yeah, thank you very much. That's my contribution today.
Thank you very much. Let's go to forward. Roberto Momente from Sati. Please present yourself.
Yeah, good morning to everyone. I'm Roberto, and I'm working as a product manager in Sati. And I was before an R&D guy, always here in Sati for the past 8-9 years, and then I moved internally to the marketing department. So just to give you an idea of who is Sati, Sati is basically a company that is located here in the north of Italy, and we are specialized in production of fabrics, textile, in particular monofilament woven mesh. We have strong know-how in R&D. We are strong, we are strong also in moving also towards new markets. And in order to serve this new market, we need to innovate, as I said before by our colleagues. So in order to stay updated, we need to innovate. So our company too is driven by innovation, and you can see by the products that are shown in this presentation how we are moving from standard conventional textile up to something that is moving on, like hybrid material, combination of textile and membrane or pure membrane. And the core business of the company is the filtration, but we have also, several business in screen printing, architecture as well, design, so process filtration and so on. So we have several markets, and in order to stay updated, we need to be ready and innovate. Well, if we go to the next slide, I will go to what I believe that means to promote sustainability. So I imagine our product in 2030. So we say, okay, let's take the example of a filter. We say this is a filter. Right now we produce it like this, but how should be the filter in 2030? And we thought about smart filters possibility. With an eco design that is able to provide something that is more close to sustainability. So in order to reach this new smart filter, we have to start from recycled polymer like recycled polyester, recycled polyamide, or biopolymers as well, be better if biodegradable. And we need to put the integration inside this kind of filter by simply integrated with electronics and sensors. So for instance, we are moving to IoT, so we are able to provide, we will be able maybe to provide some sensing capacity to the mesh inside the filter to detect maybe some parameters like mechanical tension, like mechanical components that, chemical components that may be encountered inside the filter, or even the clogging. So we know when the filter is closed. And this data, maybe we can communicate with the cloud, and everyone can get access to, can be a supplier, can be the customer as well. And the need for this data is not that data will be the most important power in the future, is also in our case to allow what is called predictive analytics. So you will get a signal when basically the filter is broken, or maybe can be not broken, but before it gets broke. So you say, okay, I can change it before, and so there is a reduce of waste, and of course you increase the efficiency of the system. And in order to be more sustainable, why don't we get some energy storage inside the filter itself? So maybe I thought about the possibility to have some solar cells inside. So I know that we are dreaming, but maybe this could be the future as well. And of course, everything should be done in a circular economy. So we have to design the filter in order to perform well, but at the same time, at the end of its life, it should be recycled and as well getting some sustainable production let me say, in a sustainable production. So what we are asking to promote sustainability is we need some partnership. We need to create an ecosystem where each of these players is basically where we need the know-how of each of these players, because we are strong in textile, but we are not strong in polymers. So we need an expert. So who has know-how in polymers, recycled polymers? We need the know-how of electronics. We need the know-how of energy people. So we need the know-how who is dealing with circular economy. So what we need is to get all these industrial partners to sit at the same table, to get some, let me say, some industrial partners, some experts. So who is bringing the know-how and joining everything? Yes, joining everything and getting a multidisciplinary vision.
Thank you very much. And last not the least, welcome the new generation from Marina. I'm very happy to see young people coming to driving the businesses. So Marina, present yourself and your company.
Yes, thank you, Raj, for the presentation. It's an honor for me to be here in this webinar. My name is Marina Ginasta, and I'm presenting here Black Fabric, which is a small startup based in Barcelona, but we are part of a bigger textile group, which is Marina Textile Group, which has more than 25 years experience on weaving technical fabrics for personal protective equipment, fire resistancy. And Black Fabric was born like 3 years ago due to the need to offer more sustainable fabrics in the composite sector. Because until now, most of the materials used are based in thermoset resins, like epoxy resins, which cannot be recycled. So that's why on Black Fabric, we bet on a new technologies and we are trying to offer a wide range of fabric based on thermoplastic polymers, which is an innovative solution that can be recycled. So we are thinking in the future or trying to give a new life to the materials when they arrive at the end of the life. So we are working with innovative technologies, with the spread toe tapes, with commingling yarns. Also, we are betting a lot with natural fabrics and with the goal to offer more greener or more sustainable solution in the composite sector. So we can move in the next slide, please. So nowadays, in the composite industry, we are facing a huge problem because until now, nobody cares. Like, we came from an era of nobody cares about the end life of the materials. So they were just thinking on, okay, high performance and really nice looking materials, but nobody cares what happens at the end of the life of these materials in the composite sectors. This problem is from the whole sectors, from automotive, aerospace, maritime industry, renewable energies. So right now we have a lot of tons and tons of waste that there is no way to recycle them. There is no solution. So as you can see here in this picture, they are dumped in landfills or just buried underground. Here in this picture, we can see the wind turbines blades that they are just hidden underground. It seems incredible, but it is how it is because there are no solutions. So that's why we really think that it's important to have support and also investment, and we have to invest in research to design from zero the whole value chain. So start from machinery suppliers to design the whole process to, in one hand, recycle it and finding new ways to recycle the existing carbon fiber waste, But we must keep working in projects and in innovative projects which are working to find solutions for the recycled materials. We need to find new products or new applications where we can use these recycled materials, giving them an added value and trying to enter it again in the value chain and fostering a little bit the circular economy and working for a more sustainable products. From our side, in Black Fabric, we've been working to develop the first bidirectional fabric made with recycled carbon fibers. This is something really unique and innovative, but there is still a lot of work to do. In this fabric, we achieved to align the recycled carbon fibers, improving a lot the mechanical performance compared to the existing solutions with recycled carbon fibers, which are non-wovens or matte, which there are low mechanical performance, so low valued, low added value. So, but even though we increase the mechanical performance of the recycled carbon fiber solutions, we need to find applications. Regulations must be done to find the right place for this material in the market. So that's why we think there is still a long way, and we have to do a lot of hard investments and in research from the whole value chain. We need to start from zero, from machinery suppliers to design new process, new yarns, new materials, new wovens, up to the end user or the aircraft manufacturing, the cars designers. So we must start from eco design, and we must first find a solution to recycle the existing waste, and then finding new places in the market for these recycled solutions. So it's something that includes the whole value chain in the whole sector. And this is what we are trying to bet in Black Fabric. But as we said during the whole day, it's something that we need to work all together and make a lot of networking and push the efforts all in the same way. So
thank you, Marina.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, as I said before, maybe we have the more difficult part of sustainability implementation, because our stress is to have performance with different kind of materials, different approaches, how to have the lightest possible automotive solutions without carbon fiber and resin, and how to recycle and so on. So this is really a very difficult part. In other hand, I want to introduce another concept, because technical textiles can contribute for a more sustainable world. When we talk about filtration, or when we talk about lighter materials for mobility and so on, yeah, we are not only talking about the sustainability of the industry itself, but as well we are talking about our contribution to the global sustainability. I will return to this later to discuss what kind of support we need to be useful for the community. But first of all, I want to understand from your side how we can defossilize our industry, focus on performance. When do you have a year as a target to defossilize completely the technical textiles area? Please, Christoph, first.
I would say latest 2055. That's just the European target for being climate neutral in the EU. Honestly, I think that's really a hard date to give, to say, okay, we want this exact date to be the one where we achieve the complete circularity of a structure. I think we have seen in the chat before the discussion on what even just contributes to this whole topic of being sustainable is a microplastic shedding of a material. When you have an easier assembling through that, is that sustainable still, or is it not? So I think this whole term of sustainability, of being carbon neutral, of being whatever else. I think that's really something we need to clarify as well. What I'd like to just support again, because Marina, you've just put it like into perfect words. I think we need this whole supply chain working together. We need the one who's thinking about new technologies to manufacture fibers. We need to have somebody contributing from thinking about the new fabric construction that we can use. And we need the end user for this fabric who can really just give the requirements back into the whole value chain. And this is really something we just need these consortiums. We need this interaction. We need to take the time. We need to have the time to really think about these future topics and to really push it forward. So that's it's hard to give a date to say like this will be the exact date, but I think the target should be clear, and that the need of contribution by the EU government, I think that's really crucial here.
Roberto, first, your participation, your contribution. Please, to the audience, feel free to pose your questions in the chat. So, Roberto.
Yes, basically, I agree what has been said before. So there is a strong. I mean, the first part is I believe that as a marketing person is to convince the customer that in this moment the transition is not so easy in saying, okay, if you want to get a recycled material or a full sustainable material, maybe you have to compromise a little bit on the performance. But sometimes the customer is say no, why should I? Or if I have to compromise, maybe I can keep it. I can keep the same not recycled, so the virgin one. So. Or there is the innovator customer that is saying, okay, yes, why don't we work also on this possible solution and try to implement something new? And so we are seeing both of the direction, and in particular, we are involved also in automotive and in other many markets, and we are seeing that many of them are sensitive to this argument, others are not sensitive in this moment. Coming back to your question on how to reduce the carbon print, say, okay, we have to work on both the process side, so something that has been also discussed in this webinar, so something related to how to get the electricity, the energy for making our machine running and so on. But at the same time, on the product, we have to think about possibility, and we are doing that to have products that are coming from sustainable sources. The main drawbacks that we are finding right now is the availability of the material, because we cannot in this moment convert 100% of all the products that we have in something that is completely new, in something that is completely recycled or sustainable. So once again, in this moment, we have to select and so on. But getting a very strong supply chain and moving everything to our supply chain is something that we are currently doing. We have to do. Also bringing some new experts, some new involving different partners, different technology in order to get this real.
Thank you. Marina.
Yeah, I do not have much to add because I'm completely agree with Christoph and Roberto. From my side, first, I think it's important that people must be aware about sustainability and must think on it, not just in marketing. So also the end users and the final customer, it's not just a marketing theme. It's something that everyone has to believe on it and work in the same direction. So as I said, it's something that must be done in the whole value chain in order to improve the process and also make them more cost efficient, because nowadays the cost is also a problem for the innovative materials or more sustainable materials or the recycled materials. So we are not still prepared for doing the change in 1 or 2 years. It's something that we must improve day by day and trying to optimize a process to reduce cost and being more affordable for all kinds of sectors and more easy to get this kind of materials or more greener solutions.
What is the role of regulation? How you see the discussions depending on the strategy for a textile, a more sustainable and circular textile in Europe, and what we know about the rules in preparation? Do you see any constraints to our activity in technical textiles and high performance textiles? This is the first question, and the second one is how we can have a different view when talking about technical textiles from the view about fashion, because in reality all the discussions are around textile industry, but in any case the most part of the situations or the cases are related to fashion. So how do you see this situation now when we are facing the implementation of new rules, and at the same time, what kind of rules or the role of the regulation can help us for the future? Maybe Christophe?
There were lots of questions in these two sentences. Just on the first one, of course, we as machine manufacturer, we're supplying machines to both, like to technical textile producers as well as to fashion producers. So we see like I would say we see same problems at both sides when it comes to regulation, when it comes to sustainability. Marina just said that we need to ensure that sustainability is not only a marketing gag, but is really lived throughout the different steps of hierarchy through a company. And so I think what regulation can really provide is that we ensure transparency above marketing activities, so that we can really just show these in-depth sustainability efforts that a company is making towards a carbon neutral or more sustainable future. So regulation, I think that really needs to lead towards transparency, to really just show the final customer who's paying the final price on the shop floor, to really say what do I receive for the money that I'm paying for a product, and like in various steps. So this EU taxonomy is like really, I think it's, for example, it's a huge effort that's coming up, and I think it will be really a pain for many European companies and firms towards this at least having transparency on what's sustainable, what's not sustainable within our activities. But what we need, in my opinion, is really to transport this towards the end customer, so that the end customer can really make an educated decision on which product to decide on based on those regulation, or based on the data that companies provide on their sustainability efforts. So to really just help to show to the customer what we are doing to be sustainable.
Roberto?
Yeah, I agree with Christophe. So basically, everything that is related to traceability and transparency in terms of for the customer, I mean, it's something that we should work on along all the full supply chain. So towards the customer, but always, but at the same time going in the other direction. I'm not so keen on regulation, but from my experience, it seems that especially for when you move to textile that has different type of application, going from garments up to industrial, up to many other applications, maybe there is the possibility. I don't see a unified regulation, but I believe that each of the field has its own regulation. That this can be good, but at the same time, it happens that sometimes for us that we are covering different business, we have to report we have to set to a certain regulation typical of one word, and then maybe your supplier is certified to another certification, or maybe is not willing to satisfy that is not is not willing, or maybe it's not the idea of the other regulation, and then you have to spend more time and more resources in try to get everyone on the same page, so or everyone to get the same certificate. So maybe working in something that is more related to get a unified declaration, or something that is more related to that stuff can be useful. That's coming from my small experience. That's
Marina?
the main issue that I saw.
Yeah, thank you. Marina, what's your point of view?
Yeah, completely agree again. I think that there is still a lot of confusion with the standards. It's difficult to put a date because, as I said, I think that there is still a lot of work to do in the whole process. So regulations are not just for the final product. So we must be conscious during the whole process of manufacturing, and also find new source and new materials. And there is still a lot of things that must be done, and it's difficult to write a regulation because there is still a lot of research to be done. But I'm agreed that it should be something put all together in the whole world, because it's true that in European Commissions or European countries, we are really working on that way, but the rest of the world, maybe they are not running in the same way, or they are some steps behind us. So it's difficult to find a solution if we are not in globally advancing in the same way. But for my side, I think that regulations are neat and must be clear, and one regulation that must fulfill the whole process and value chain.
Thank you.
May I add one point to the point of regulation, if that's okay? Just because I think that that point came to my mind. Just to give a vivid example, if it's taxonomy, for example, we need to have an equal, level playing field, as we always say. So if we as European companies need to comply with a certain regulation, or we need to put efforts into data transparency, into giving transparency to our activities, we need to ensure that non-EU companies need to have like the same level of reporting, the same level of complying with EU regulation when importing to the EU. And that's not only on the product base, so thinking from the machine manufacturer. So if a fabric is made on a Kelheim machine, for example, and we need to really put all the effort and really need to comply with all the EU legislation rules, but another competitor of ours, another machine manufacturer from China, for example, they don't need to follow all those rules. They just do have a competitive advantage over our fabrics, like on the fabric fabric base that's imported to the EU. So we really need to ensure that even on the level of, for example, Melanie, you were speaking for Hugo Boss, that when Hugo Boss is importing fabric, we need to ensure that made on Kelheim machines or made on competitor machines, it's like having this level field of effort towards sustainability, towards complying with regulations, and really going into the steps. So, yeah.
Christophe, for the moment, I trust the European Commission saying, yeah, the rules will apply to all products sold in Europe, and not only those that are produced in Europe. For the moment, we have to trust on this determination of the European Commission. Let's see. Yeah, let's see right. the result. Yeah. One last point. Yeah, of course, we are industry, we are businesses. We must comply with the rules. We must collaborate with this Green Deal. We are agree with the Green Deal principles. In any case, we have at the same time somehow a public mission, because we have to run our business and at the same time to find new solutions, not only for our industry, but talking about technical textiles we are important for other important industries and other industries with lots of problems in terms of sustainability, automotive industry, space, health, and so on. So, yeah, I'm not saying that we are like NGOs, but in reality, we have both a business and a public mission at this moment, because the challenge is huge, really. Not only for companies, but as well the scientific and technology community has a huge responsibility now. We have to do anything to find solutions. And for this reason, I think that a support from the Europe, from the public world, is mandatory in my mind to help, to support companies to move on and to find new solutions. The challenge is not small. When we talk about recycling post-consumer goods, you know, it's easy to say we must recycle, but it's very difficult to find the right solutions to do so. This is a big challenge. This is a huge challenge we have for the future. I want to know your opinion about how European Commission must support us, how European Commission must put the right money in the right basket in order to have the quickest and more effective results in order to transform this industry in a more sustainable industry in the near future. Let's start from ladies. Marina. I'm trying to avoid you say everything or nothing to say because I'm agree with them.
Yeah, no, I think, as I said, it's a problem that, as you said, we are facing a huge challenge problem. And we are not talking just of textile ecosystem. We are also a part of big industries. And we must invest from, as I said, we must invest from zero. We must invest on machinery, and we need to make a networking and like going in advance all together, like not competing within each other in the value chain. We need to invest and put the money in innovative or research project to scale up the innovative idea or the innovative machinery which is developed to recycle it, or maybe
please Marina, focus on the support we need from the European Commission in the next years. It's very important to understand what kind of support we must have.
Yeah,
or maybe to have different opinions from Roberto now, and then we return to the point.
Yeah, no, for me, it's in trying to scale up all the sources to develop or to focus on these issues that we are facing in sustainability, and the same with the regulations.
Yeah, Roberto?
I agree with Marina, and together with regulation, I believe that we need a long-term vision by the European Commission about how we have to move on. And as also stated in my presentation, the creation maybe of a collaborative platform, something that where industries, research institutions, and also government agency can work together to identify the right challenges and provide the right support, also from the technical standpoint.
Christoph?
Yeah, trying to add the points. I think earlier Alessandro made this point to say the funding per project can't be too small, so we really need some efforts to be spent. I think that's the one point, and the other point is like the application should be made really easy and really rather, I think always rather in the way, see afterwards whether a project was successful and whether things were done like in the right way, dealing with these very multi-scale challenges, instead of having
a really detailed project plan, a really huge application form, needing to write 20 to 50 pages of application. This is not what we want. We rather want like short applications and rather severe controlling or rather severe steering and support during the project, so that the result will be well done. But really, I think this could be a way to make this efficient. This is efficient partnership and efficient funding for the companies.
Okay, thank you. We are in the last minute, and a wrap up on this discussion. I retain several points. The first one is companies are running a lot now. Everyone is trying to have different solutions and is concerned about the developments to be more sustainable. The second point is take care, European Commission, because textile sector is not only for textiles as a garment and so on. We are very important to other important industries in Europe, strategic industries in Europe. And for that, we need, of course, a clear strategy, clear rules, and at the end of the day, we need some support. Easy to use, strong, but at the same time exigent to the operators. We need big but effective interventions from all the community, companies, scientific and technological sector, in order to have solutions not only for so-called traditional textile sector, but as well for the more strategic and more advanced industries in Europe. And finally, please, EURATEX, Dirk, do your best. We need money. We need money, and we must convince European Commission. We must have the best arguments, because they need to understand before decide, and if they understand, they will decide in the right way. Thank you to the panel, and thank you to the
very much.
audience.
Thank you, Bras, for these very encouraging words and for making a good summary of what is essentially at stake. And indeed, I think it's important, as you did emphasize, that when we say textiles, there is a lot of confusion. It's not only fashion, it is a lot of technical applications. Textiles are everywhere, we tend to say, and are therefore indeed an important segment in the wider European industry. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a long session. I'm very much aware of that. But I think it's been a very interesting. We've heard a very diverse backgrounds and perspectives. And looking at the comments also in the chat, I see a lot of positive feedback. What we would like to do now is give the challenging task to my dear colleague, Lutz Walter, the Secretary General of ETP, to try to kind of bring all this together in a kind of a summary perspective. What are the main takeaways? What are the main conclusions? And I want to emphasize, as I mentioned in the beginning, that ETP, the European Technology Platform for Textiles, is of course very much involved in this whole Step 2030 process. So I want to thank Lutz and his team for that. So we'll have again this kind of summary from Lutz, and after that I want to add immediately, I would say last but not least, we will have the colleague from the European Commission, Mrs. Pradine, who will give us an update on where we stand with the European partnership, the Horizon Europe partnership applications. There is some, hopefully, good news. So please stay tuned for this marathon, also to have to listen to Marie-Hélène after that. But Lutz, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Dirk. Can you hear me well? Yep.
Yes, we can. It's okay.
Perfect. So I have this wonderful task of summarizing in a few words this extremely wide-ranging discussion of this morning. What I decided to do is to create an image in your mind. And as I describe that image, if it helps you, you may even close your eyes. And I want you to imagine an airplane. I want you to imagine an airplane that flies through turbulences. And real turbulences, not like the little wobbly thing, but those really that you feel in your stomach. And then that airplane has to upgrade both engines, its material engine and its manufacturing technology engine. And they have to upgrade. These are serious upgrades that have to be done in flight, and these engines cannot stop. And I don't want to imagine, or I want you to have a look into the cockpit. And you have two pilots in there. You have an old, very experienced pilot in there, but slightly diminishing eyesight. And there's a huge dashboard in front of him with physical buttons and manual levers. But then from time to time, these manual levers disappear and they get replaced by some touch screens that he struggles to operate with his rather unsteady hand. And that obviously is an image for the digitalization challenge. And next to him is a young co-pilot. And she is very capable of operating all these touch screens very easily. But she doesn't always know what happens when she dials up and down the various parameters. So she has to learn a lot about practical business operations from the experienced pilot. And that obviously is the image for the skills challenge that the industry has to go through. And then those two pilots are obviously in contact with air traffic control. That sends them a lot of different and often changing guidance and information about their position, about the direction, the air traffic around them, and so on and so forth. And that obviously is the image for the regulatory challenge. So the air traffic control being the regulators. But then from time to time, these communication gets interrupted by loud voices shouting, "You fly too fast, you fly too low, you fly in the wrong direction," which obviously is an image for the interaction this industry has with NGOs and activist civil society organizations, which have their very relevant concerns about the operations of the industry. And then there's a cabin full of passengers that constantly push these little buttons overhead, requesting to change the seats, to get more drinks or different food and more entertainment, driving the cabin staff crazy. And above all, they don't want to pay anything more for all of that. And obviously, that's an image of the rapidly changing consumer behavior challenge that we're facing. And now you have this image of an airplane which runs on a fuel tank that is not generously full. And so this is the image I wanted to create of the textile and fashion industry airplane flying towards 2030. So obviously, from there, the plea to the EU policymakers to say, well, help us at least to ensure that our fuel tanks are not running dry. And if you remember the first slide that EURATEX has shown, where they estimated approximately 5 to 7 billion investment for circularity until 2030, to be done by the textile industry, but also by the waste management industry, of course. Imagine just 10% of that is covered by public support. We're talking 500 to 700 million euros. And 10% obviously is not a lot, given the slide of the challenge. And then imagine that this is circularity is just one of the 5 challenges that we had to vote on in the beginning. There's the bio-based transformation, the digital transformation, all the high performance technical textiles, in which Europe is clearly the world market leader. And I was very glad to have this last session here as well to show that it's not all about clothing and fashion. It's also about technical textiles. But these two sectors are somewhere joined at the hip, because you see a lot of industries and companies that we have, both in the textile industry, but also in the textile machinery industry, that actually started off as companies operating in the traditional textile and clothing industry, and now are making things as highly advanced as what Marina has, for instance, presented. So, and then we have the whole traceability challenge. So all these need massive innovation investments. And then we don't have to forget, in terms of numbers, 99% of all the companies in the sector are SMEs. So, and many companies, luckily, also are startups. And all these smaller and younger companies have naturally very limited financial and also very limited human resources to invest in longer term and earlier stage innovation. they have to keep their eyes on the ball, operationally speaking, constantly. So therefore, this public support for collaborative research is really key. And it's key for two reasons. The number one is, and we heard it many times today, no company can do it alone. So we need partnerships. We need partnerships across the value chain. We need partnerships across Europe. And we also need partnerships across industry and research and technology providers. And that is, for me, also important to underline that we're not only having a world-class textile technology sector in Europe, we also have a world-class textile research and higher education infrastructure in Europe, but we have to do everything to strengthen and to maintain it. If Europe wants to remain world market leader in sustainable textile innovation development over the coming years and over the coming decades. And we need to invest in the infrastructure of those research organizations that often serve as kind of external R&D departments of our smaller companies. And we have to invest into the younger people. We have to invest in attracting, training, retaining young people to work in this sector. So we hope that EU policymakers step up to this challenge to support this very strategic European industry and its research and higher education community, so that we can all work together to safely get our airplane to a very bright and very sunny destination in 2030. And with that, I would hand over back to Dirk. Thank you.
Thank you, Lutz, for a very inspiring analogy presentation. At the same time, bringing together indeed the different elements that have been put on the table this morning. I think very, very well done, and emphasizing the right points that we need to make. You were addressing the policymakers, or you're addressing, let's say, Europe in your presentation. So I suggest we move on immediately to invite the representatives of the European Commission to respond to this challenge, to this invitation. So we're very happy to have Marie-Hélène Pradine with us as a final speaker in our webinar. Marie-Hélène is responsible for the textile units within DG GROW. And as I said before, she will give an update, or maybe her perspective, and an update of where we stand with the Horizon Europe application. Marie-Hélène, thanks very much for being with us, and you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me well? That's fine. Okay.
Yes,
very good.
Yes, all good. Yeah.
Very good. I mean, it's for me to thank you, Dirk, for the organization of this workshop or webinar. I don't know what's the name. I mean, for the this event. I think it's really very, very useful and very appropriate in the current context. I mean, I couldn't attend to the whole webinar, but I mean, I heard that we had very good speakers, very good ideas, very relevant initiatives to try to help and support SMEs to address circularity and sustainability requirements, which are coming now with the new regulations. So I'm very happy to be there and to explain as well how we can help. I was not able to attend the whole webinar, as I said, but I mean, I heard very well the conclusions of the last one, asking for a strategy, for some rules and from support, and clearly stating we need money and we have to convince the European Commission for this. Alors, a strategy, I think we have one. I mean, there was one adopted in 2022, of course, very general, and we are now implementing it piece by piece with new rules, as you know. So we also have the rules ongoing in preparation. We have more or less 60 new EU legislative initiatives coming already on the table or coming very soon, and support. We are there to provide it, and that's why I'm going to present our proposal concerning the partnership for textiles. We need money. Yes, that's the idea, to have this partnership to help you with money. We have to convince the European Commission, yes, but I mean, I must say here that we are already fully convinced, at least in DG Grow, and even in the Commission, because I mean, this proposal is on the table, and I would like to take the opportunity of my intervention to ask you to as well convince at your level the member states, your interlocutors in the member states, because I mean, it's also up to the ministries in charge of research, mainly in the member states, but I mean, you can go maybe via your interlocutors in the ministers in charge of industry, is for them as well to support us with this partnership. For us, it's done, it's on the table. I'm going to present it now. I wanted just to make this intervention and before maybe going a bit more into the details of the partnership. Now, why we are presenting this partnership? I mean, first point, I mean, is the situation of textiles. Okay, textile is key for the industry, of course, and that's why we want to have this global approach, dealing with the ecosystem globally, taking into account the links, taking into account as well that textile is the fourth highest pressure category for primary raw materials and water, and the fifth for greenhouse gas emission. Okay, it's a context we have to take into account. I already mentioned the strategy. We also have the transition pathway issued recently in June, identifying some actions to help the sector to become greener, more digital, more resilient, and in the end, more competitive. It's our objective. And I already mentioned the new rules. So innovation is key. We know this, and that's why this partnership proposal comes under Horizon Europe to try to boost innovation, to boost secondary sourcing of raw materials, to support design as a driver for sustainable innovation, to support creative solutions, to reduce waste and overproduction, improve the aesthetic and functionality of textiles, and enable digital transformation. You see, with this set of objectives that we have, we try to have this global approach as well with this partnership. We are proposing a co-program partnership. What is a co-program partnership? It's a partnership putting together inputs from the European Commission, I mean money from the European Commission, from the Horizon Europe fund, but as well from the industry. And not only money, but as well ideas and priorities. And here, that's why, I mean, I'm very happy for having this discussion today, because, I mean, we can already explore further on the basis of what was presented today, but I mean, we will have to go even deeper, identifying clearly the priorities, the needs for the sector, and of course, taking into account as well all the other programs we could have, or other actions we could have, because Horizon Europe is one, but there are also other innovation actions, I mean, other possibilities under Horizon Europe or maybe other funds. So we'll have to take this into account and to really work in full synergies with the other partnerships and calls and actions under this research innovation. So the idea would be to have a common innovation framework under this Horizon Europe program, and to overcome the fragmentation we can have today, to have a more global view, a more global approach, a more targeted and focused approach on the needs. Now on the next slides. Voilà. So this partnership will be financed under Cluster 4 of the Horizon Europe program, which is a digital industry and space program, still having this global approach I mentioned, but I mean, it's under this cluster. It should start in 2025. As I said, being a co-program partnership, we expect to have some partners, industry and stakeholders first, in particular EURATEX, of course, but as well research and technology organization, fashion brands, environmental NGOs, I mean, any input, any actor will be welcome for this. And of course, we will have a partner DGs for the partnership. Okay, we are DigiGrow, but I mean, we are Grow G1 dealing with textiles. We all have our colleagues in Grow G2 dealing with creative industry. So, I mean, they can as well bring something. RTD, of course, DGANV for the sustainability aspects, GRC, and Connect for the digital aspects as well. So, I mean, we need to put everyone around the table to set up these priorities. So the program will be implemented through Horizon Europe work programs. Then when we will have the set of priority defined all together, then it will be the usual calls you maybe know under the Horizon Europe programs, and it will be up to the partners to provide input on the relevant topics to be included in these calls. The links with the other European partnership, I already mentioned it, and it's essential to be sure the money we will have via this partnership is really getting the objective we need. Now, where we are today, I said it already, the proposal is now on the table. It is being discussed with member states, with the research ministry in particular. The consultation will end in September. I mean, there is a survey open for member states until end of September, and then we will have a workshop with member states beginning of October. And normally, this partnership will be decided at the end of the year. Yeah, we will circulate the slides. I see this in the chat. No problem for this. I will stop there. If we have some questions, I will be happy to answer them. Just 2 words of conclusion. We have to keep in touch. We have to work together to identify these clear priorities, this clear initiative we could finance under this Horizon Europe partnership in full synergy with the others. We have, and I mean, the work should start very soon. I mean, it's the first step, this webinar. But already in the coming days, we have to prepare clearly what could be the concrete actions, what could be the priority to be able to conclude by the end of the year this partnership to be adopted and to be implemented as from next year. Voilà, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Marie-Hélène, for that update and for indeed confirming, as you said, that the Commission is on board, so to speak, has made that decision to support the textile partnership as a formal proposal. That in itself, I think, is important to recognize also towards the many stakeholders that are with us this morning, because often we hear from the sector that Europe or the Commission doesn't care too much about textiles. I think the fact that today there is this recognition, there is this formal proposal on the table, is an important step forward. And I really want to thank you and the colleagues from DigiGrow for making that effort. At the same time, as you clearly said, we are at a proposal stage, and the final decision is still to be taken by essentially the member states. And as it was already mentioned also in the chat, I think, it is important for the many friends and stakeholders and colleagues from the textile ecosystem, wherever you are, to be in touch with your relevant or respective ministries in the research area to push and to promote this specific textile application. Because to be very clear, you will see it on the first slide that I published this morning. There is competition with other sectors for a relatively small amount of funding. So it comes down to there is a cake, and how will that cake be divided between how many pieces and how big each piece will be. And that is the bottom line where we are. Okay, I think we are perfectly on time. It is 3 minutes to 1, and we were hoping to close at 1. So I think we've been doing well. I will not add much more at this stage, except obviously to thank all the participants for being with us and for staying with us for such a long kind of marathon. But once again, I think it has been very interesting and valuable to have everybody's input. I also want to thank my colleagues here in the team for putting this together. Catherine, you can see her, Christina, Georgia, other colleagues for preparing this webinar. I want to make a final call, and I think it's a slide, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, as part of the Step 2030 effort, we have launched a kind of a register of stakeholders where they can confirm their support and interest to be involved in the Step 2030 application. And I think Catherine will share a link in the chat that you can follow, where you can simply confirm as a company, as a research organization, your interest and your willingness to participate, to engage into such a partnership. And so if you haven't done so yet, please do so, because it's important towards the European Commission, towards member states, to show that the textile ecosystem is not just asking for support, but is also available to co-create and contribute in this process. And so therefore this register, this Step 2030 register is important. At the same time, I also want to make a bit of publicity for the Commission's transition pathway. I see Marie-Hélène very happy about this.
Yeah, very good. I was looking at the chat, and I saw Catherine made a comment on this. So I mean, I'm very supportive, of course.
So for those who would not be familiar, so the Commission has launched, as was mentioned, this transition pathway, and is now looking to see or to get commitments from the industry towards implementation of the different actions that are explained in this pathway. And again, to keep it very short, there is also here an online a link that has been shared in the chat, where you can go to a fairly simple online form where you can confirm as a company, as an organization, in which, let's say, actions of this pathway you are able to commit, you are able to confirm your engagement towards implementing successfully this whole transition, implementing this whole textile strategy. So have a look or click on the link, and it's quite clearly explained how you should participate in this pathway commitments. So with those two words, again, we'll finish here, thanking again everybody. We will stay in touch, obviously, on the Step 2030 application. We will keep you informed about progress in the next few weeks, as you've heard from Marie-Hélène. And we work at EURATEX in close cooperation with ETP and other partners. We will do everything we can to make sure that this application becomes successful, that there is funding coming on the table, so that, as it was said many times this morning, we can secure and support a competitive and sustainable European textile industry. So with this, thanks everybody for being with us, and look forward to see you soon somewhere in Europe. Thank you very much.